Chapter 329, Duel Agreement. Xiaoye, even though there isn't much to be said about the other party's character, she isn't weak. You must be careful. Zheng Yang stepped forward and told Xiaoye with a hushed voice. Don't worry. Xiaoye responded. After Zhang Laosher's guidance yesterday, she opened up another 10 acupoints. Even though the lady before her wasn't weak, she could only be considered to be on par with her. When it comes down to it, it was hard to say who would lose. Who? Leaping forward, Xiaoye landed lightly on the sparring ring. Staring at Mu Xueqing with her black beady eyes, she gestured with her hands and said, "Let's begin." Humph. Refusing to back down, Mu Xueqing leaped onto the sparring ring as well. She unleashed her might, which had just risen from her breakthrough just a moment ago, and strength gushed through her as though a flowing river. It's beginning. The battle between the two beauties. Seeing the two beauties facing each other on the sparring ring, the crowd immediately fell silent, fearful that they would interrupt their concentration. I will make you apologize. With a clear thud, Xiaoye pushed against the floor and charged forth. At the same time, a howling aura which bore some reminiscence to the gleam of a sword shrouded her arms. The one to apologize will be you. Refusing to yield, Mu Xueqing also charged forward. Peng 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 peng. Soon, the duo had already traded blows several times. As Pixue realm cultivators, the might of their blows caused a violent sonic boom to burst in the air. Incredible. Where did this lady come from? Despite her young age, she is actually able to match Mu Xueqing. Amidst the crowd, a young man looked at the battle with a perplexed expression. It was the student who was ranked first in the student tournament, Zhao Wuxing. I have no idea as well. It seemed as though she suddenly appeared today. Beside him, another person looked at the stage with a doubtful expression as well. If Mu Xueqing saw this person, she would definitely recognize him as the one who was placed second in the student tournament, Lu Changyan. Despite being the two most famous students in the academy, Zhao Wuxing and Lu Changyan couldn't hold back their curiosity to spectate the battle. Who do you think will win? After looking for a moment longer, Lu Changyan chuckled. In just a few days, Mu Xueqing's cultivation has improved, and the restraint in her movements has also disappeared, causing her fighting prowess to soar greatly. Even though the lady she is facing is using inferior battle techniques, her movements were forceful. Furthermore, there seems to be some kind of frosty aura to her moves, making it difficult for one to face it head-on. I can't really say for sure who will win. After hesitating for a moment, Zhao Wuxing said. As the number one student in the entire academy, his eye for such matters was astonishing. However, regardless of whether it was their cultivation or their means, the two ladies on the sparring ring seemed to be on the same level. He couldn't say for sure who would win either. Lu Changyan nodded in agreement. Then, he suddenly frowned. That lady who abruptly appeared has a strong foundation, but why are her battle techniques so weak? All of the moves she has used were at intermediate tier mortal or so. If her battle techniques were slightly more advanced, she might have won already. Indeed. Zhao Wuxing was also perplexed by the sight. These two beautiful ladies had both reached Pixue realm. As long as they wished, they could easily access the high tier or even pinnacle mortal battle techniques. To still be using intermediate tier mortal at her cultivation realm, that was indeed a little lacking. If not for the frosty aura in her body limiting the other party's movements, rendering Mu Xueqing unable to gain on her, she would have already lost. This isn't good. Zheng Yang and the others could also see the problem. Xiaoye's purine body granted her a huge advantage against cultivators of the same cultivation realm. However, as the battle techniques she knew were still limited to the level of Tianxian Kingdom, there was still a huge distance between both parties. More importantly, it had only been 2 months since Xiaoye advanced from Fighter 1 Dan Jushi realm to Pixue realm. The rapid rise in her cultivation caused her to lack actual combat experience. On the other hand, as the little demoness who had caused innumerable storms in Tianwu Academy, Mu Xueqing had plenty of battle experience. lacking battle techniques and battle experience. If not for her overwhelmingly powerful physical constitution and her powerful Zongshi, she would have already lost by now. Don't panic. Even though Zhao Ye is lacking in practical battle experience, it isn't that easy for the other party to triumph over her. Lu Yang said. Back then, Zhao Ye's physical constitution could even suppress Lu Sun Laoshe. No matter how powerful this lady was, could she be stronger than Lu Sun? Don't worry. Once she gets used to the tempo of the battle, it will just be a matter of time before she defeats the other party. Zhao Ye's disadvantage was due to her lacking battle experience. As the battle continued on, Zhao Ye would slowly get used to the flow of the fight, and by then, it wouldn't be difficult for her to defeat the other party. Damn it! Since the crowd below was able to realize this, naturally Mu Xueqing could notice it as well, and her face steeled. Even though she wasn't the strongest female in her age group in Tianwu Kingdom, she wasn't too far from it. She thought that it should have been easy for her to teach a lass younger than her a lesson, but never in her dreams did she expect for the other party to be this formidable. When did such an incredible freshman appear in Tianwu Academy? If this continues to drag on, given how condensed her Zongshi is, I will surely lose. I have no choice but to use that technique. Mu Xueqing gritted her teeth, and a ferocious glint appeared in her eyes. Even though the other party was in a disadvantageous position at first, as time went by, she found the tables being slowly turned on her. In the end, her cultivation was forcefully pulled by pills, so her Zongshi was still a little thin. Humph. Harumphing lightly, Mu Xueqing frowned. Her aura suddenly surged, and she released a forceful punch. It's Apothecary Mu's Fallen Flower Fist. A grim look appeared on Zhao Wuxing's face. Fallen Flower Fist? Lu Changyan turned to Zhao Wuxing and asked. Indeed. It's a high-tier phantom battle technique. It's said that when Apothecary Mu reached Zongshi realm, in remembrance of his dead wife, he created this technique. There is a total of 3 moves to this technique, and every single one has overwhelming strength. Even Mo Hongyi was filled with praises for it. Zhao Wuxing stared at the lady on stage and commented, to think that Apothecary Mu would pass this technique on to his daughter and that she would have already mastered the first move. High-tier phantom battle technique? Techniques of such level are rare even in the capital. The other lady Mu Xueqing is facing is in trouble. Amazed, Lu Changyan nodded his head. Even in Tianwu Kingdom, a high-tier phantom battle technique was considered to be top-notch. On top of that, the other lady was lacking in good battle techniques, making it difficult for her to withstand this move. As they expected, facing the savage pressure from the other party, Zhao Ye's face warped in shock. I have to go all out. Gritting her silver teeth, she knew that she would definitely fall in defeat if she were to continue executing normal moves. Thus, with a bellow, she pumped her Zongshi furiously through her veins. She was putting her all into this single move. Pang! The fallen flower fist met her palm. Dang 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 dang. The duo's faces reddened, and they retreated 7 to 8 steps consecutively before fresh blood spurted from their mouths. It was a draw. Zhao Ye. Senior. Zheng Yang and Meng Tao dashed up to the stage. Seems like I have underestimated you. It is a draw today, but do you dare to fight against me 3 days from now? Flinging her arms, Mu Xueqing pushed Meng Tao and the others aside before glaring at Zhao Ye coldly. So be it. If you lose at that time, you have to apologize. Zhao Ye stared back at her as well. Apologize? I only said that Zongshi isn't good at teaching. What business of it is yours? At this, Mu Xueqing suddenly realized something and she froze. It can't be that you all are Zhongshi's students. That's right. He is our teacher. Your action of insulting him is equivalent to insulting all of us. Zhao Ye replied. I see. Finally understanding the reason why the other party was so furious as to challenge her to a duel, Mu Xueqing shook her head. I am also filled with respect for Zongshi, Just that I am being objective here. In terms of teaching, I can guarantee that our Lu Laoshi is definitely superior to your Zongshi. Lu Laoshi? I've never heard of him. Xiaoya shook her head. Then, with a proud look, she declared, our Zhang Laoshi is definitely the best in teaching. No one is able to match up to him. Mu Xueqing gritted her teeth. Since none of us is willing to concede, then let our fists do the talking. Let's meet again 3 days from now on, and whoever loses has to admit that their teacher is inferior to the other party's teacher. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Why wouldn't I dare to accept your challenge? Xiaoya nodded. Fine, it's a deal then. Let's go. Seeing that the other party had agreed to it, Mu Xueqing flung her arms, turned around and left. It hadn't been long since she came into contact with Lu Laoshi, but she felt grateful to the other party for solving the trauma in the body and raising her cultivation. Given that a student of Zongshi was challenging his prestige, she felt a need to guard his honor. She wanted to let people know that even though Lu Laoshi wasn't a master teacher, he was in no way inferior to a master teacher. Let's go. Xiaoya also left with Wang Ying and the others. These few people are Zhongshi's students. This is a huge affair. I've heard of Zongshi. He's the genius who broke all of Genius Mo Hongyi's records, taking over his position as the #1 genius of Tianwu Kingdom. No wonder that lady was so incredible, she is his student. Upon learning that Xiaoya and the others were Zhongshi's students, the crowd below broke into a commotion. Those students who harbored ideas on Xiaoya immediately vanquished all of their thoughts. Master teacher Zhang Xian was a rising figure in the city, and many influential powers were eager to build a connection with him. Laying hands on his students was no different than suicide. Right, isn't Mu Xueqing's teacher by Fan Laoshi? Who is Lu Laoshi? You still don't know about it? Bai Fang Laoshi has already left the academy, and this Lu Laoshi is a teacher who was just recruited today. Just recruited today? That's right. I was in charge of attending to the interviewees, so I personally saw the scene back then. That Lu Laoshi is indeed a capable teacher, the student recounted the events during the public recruitment. With a single word, he fixed a student's aversion to studying, and with a beating, he fixed a student's violent tendencies. You must be joking. There's actually such a person in the world. After hearing those words, the crowd was dumbfounded. They couldn't help but doubt that the other party was lying to them. It's true. The student said indignantly. You all know Mu Xueqing's personality as well. If it's not true, how could she be willing to fight with another person for him when she has only come into contact with him for such a short period of time? This, now that you speak of it, I suddenly thought of something. When I met the students in their class this morning, their cultivation didn't seem to be that high yet. How in the world was all of their cultivation raised in just a few hours? Could this really be due to Lu Laoshi's guidance? For him to be so formidable, who in the world is this Lu Laoshi? The more the crowd discussed, the more curious they were about Mu Xueqing's new teacher. Ah, Chu. After leaving the classroom, just as Zhang Xian was walking on a pavement, he suddenly sneezed. Perplexed, he rubbed his nose. What's wrong? Did I catch a cold? Chapter 330, Physician Guild. Not long after Mu Xueqing and the others stepped out of the classroom, Zhang Xian left as well. To raise Lu Chang's cultivation in the shortest time possible, he had to purchase sufficient medicinal herbs to concoct the poison. It was impossible for him to obtain these herbs just by waiting in the academy. There are only 2 sources where one can obtain medicinal herbs: the Herb Kings and the Physician Guild. Zhang Xian contemplated as he proceeded forward. Herb Kings referred to wholesaler of medicinal herbs, and the Great Herb King of the Red Lotus City was the largest wholesaler in the 13 surrounding kingdoms. If Tianwu Royal City has a Herb King, Bai Chan and the others wouldn't have to go through so much effort to travel to Red Lotus City to purchase medicine. I better head to the Physician Guild. Given how Bai Chan and the other physicians traveled all the way to Red Lotus City to purchase medicinal herbs, it was clear that there was no herb king in Tianwu Royal City. Even if there was, it was unlikely for him to have a wide variety of herbs. Since that was the case, Zhang Xian decided to head for the Physician Guild straight. The Apothecary Guild and the Physician Guild both expended huge quantities of herbs on a daily basis. The pills the former forged were mostly related to raising one's cultivation, and thus, the medicinal herbs they possessed were mostly tonics and spirit medicinal herbs. On the other hand, the latter concocted medicine with the purpose of saving and treating others, and poisonous herbs frequently appeared in their prescriptions. Therefore, it was more likely that latter would possess the poisonous herbs that Zhang Xian was looking for. After asking around in the academy, Zhang Xian soon found out where the Physician Guild was located. It wasn't too far from Tianwu Academy, and he arrived at its doorstep within an hour. The Physician Guild wasn't as grand as the Master Teacher Pavilion, but still, it was larger and more imposing than the Painter Guild. Upon walking into the lounge, Zhang Xian immediately saw a group of people lining up neatly within. There were apprentices seated at the front diagnosing the patient. It was quite similar to the hospitals in his previous life. Walking around the crowd, Zhang Xian walked up to the reception and a young lady in her 20s walked up to welcome him with a sweet smile. "May I know what Gongzi hopes to inquire? I wish to buy some medicinal herbs." Zhang Xian said. "You wish to buy some herbs?" The lady hesitated for a moment before asking politely, "Can you show me your prescription?" Prescription? He was just here to buy medicinal herbs, so how could he possibly have something like that? "You can only buy medicinal herbs with a prescription." Seeing the confused look on the other party's face, the lady frowned. "Where can I obtain a prescription?" Zhang Xian asked. "Physicians and apprentices have the right to issue a prescription." The lady looked at Zhang Xian with a bizarre gaze. "However, apprentices can only issue prescriptions consisting of low-tier medicinal herbs. If you wish to purchase high-tier medicinal herbs, you will have to look for a physician. To dare to come up here to buy medicinal herbs when you don't even know where to get a prescription from, it is fortunate for you that my temper is good, otherwise you would have already been kicked out as a troublemaker." "Oh, the medicinal herbs I want to buy can't be considered as high tier, but they are still quite rare. I will recite them for you, so can you tell me whether I should look for an apprentice or a physician to issue a prescription?" Seeing the long queue before the apprentices and a longer one before the physicians, Zhang Xian decided to clarify everything properly before deciding on a course of action. He didn't want to leave in disappointment after lining up for several hours at the apprentice queue only to realize that the other party was unable to issue the prescription. "All right." The lady nodded. "I want to buy white angelica flower, crimson-edged leaf, wolf venom grass." After pondering for a moment, Zhang Xian listed out over a dozen medicinal herbs. Before he could finish his words, the lady's eyes widened into large circles. Alarmed, she took a step back and knocked a bronze gong. "Guards, someone is causing trouble." Zhang Xian. "Walala." A few armored guards rushed over. "Yoro Xiaojie, what's wrong?" The guard leader was a tall and bulky man. With a physique as though a steel tower, his presence exerted a huge pressure on those around him. "Tongxian realm expert." "That man is causing trouble," receptionist Yoro pointed. Cough cough. Zhang Xian didn't expect that he would be taken for a troublemaker when he only intended to purchase medicine. Shaking his head, he said, "I am a teacher of Tianwu Academy, I am really here to buy medicinal herbs." After which, he flashed an emblem indicating his identity as a teacher. He didn't want to be thrown out from the guild despite having only entered a moment ago. "Oh, so it's Lu Laosher. Pardon our disrespect." After taking a glance at the emblem, the guard leader clasped his fist. He then turned to Yoro and asked doubtfully, "What is going on?" Tianwu Academy was known as the sacred land for cultivators, and the teachers possessed immense prestige in the capital. No one dared to look down on them. Since the other party was a teacher, it was unlikely that he would cause trouble here given his esteemed standing. Despite not having a prescription, he said that he wanted to buy prohibited medicinal herbs like white angelica flower, crimson-edged leaf, and wolf venom grass. If this isn't causing trouble, what else is? Not expecting that this ignorant fellow to be a teacher of Tianwu Academy, Yoro was taken aback for a moment. However, she soon recovered and explained the situation. Buying prohibited medicinal herbs. After hearing the reason, the guard leader turned to Zhang Xian, Lu Laoshi. Medicinal herbs like the wolf venom grass possess lethal poison, and thus, the guild deems them as prohibited herbs. Even with a prescription, we aren't allowed to sell them to you. Unless a physician vouches for you personally, otherwise it will be impossible to purchase those herbs. I'm unable to purchase those herbs even with a prescription. Yes. These prohibited medicinal herbs possess lethal poison, and in order to prevent people from abusing these medicinal herbs to conduct vile deeds, the guild decided to impose strict rules on their distribution. I seek your understanding on this matter. The guard clasped his fist and explained respectfully. If not for the fact that the other party was a teacher of Tianwu Academy, he would have thought that he was here to cause trouble as well. Despite knowing nothing at all, to head to the guild to purchase prohibited medicinal herbs he sure was brazen. Oh. Zhang Xian nodded. He could understand the rationale behind their actions. In his previous life, some of the more potent medicine, such as sleeping pills, weren't available to the general public even with a prescription. They were simply trying to prevent widespread use of these lethal medicinal herbs, which could potentially cause unrest in the city. Since Lu Laoshi understands this matter, I have to ask you to leave and not make things difficult for us. Seeing that the other party comprehended their plight, the guard leader continued. However, before he could finish his words, the young man before him knitted his eyebrows tightly together. With a helpless expression, the other party shook his head. Seems like I have to try taking the physician examination then. Sigh, to think that even purchasing medicinal herbs would be such a hassle. Taking the physician examination? Purchasing medicinal herbs would be such a hassle. Upon hearing those words, Yoro and the guards nearly keeled over. Physician was one of the higher-ranked occupations of the upper 9 paths. As such, the difficulty of the examination was extraordinary. Despite not even being an apprentice, not to mention how you didn't even know that a prescription was required to purchase medicinal herbs, how could you boast so arrogantly that you are going to take the physician examination? Furthermore, for you to do so just to purchase medicinal herbs, brother, will you die if you act a little humbler? Yoro's complexion immediately turned awful. She had seen many braggarts before, but she had never seen one who was capable of bragging to the stars. Even if you don't know that a prescription is required to purchase medicinal herbs, you should at least know that taking the physician examination requires an in-depth knowledge of medicinal herbs. To not even know that the white angelica flower, crimson-edged leaf, and wolf venom grass are prohibited medicinal herbs and you still wish to take the physician examination? You must be joking. Lu Laoshi, the physician examination isn't as easy as you think. The guard leader was infuriated by how lightly the other party was taking the occupation, but in consideration of his identity as a teacher of Tianwu Academy, he suppressed his anger and tried to explain the matter to him. I understand. How can becoming a member of an occupation of the upper 9 paths be easy? Zhang Xian nodded. Hearing the other party's words, the guard leader nodded, thinking that the other party had given up on the idea. However, upon hearing the words that followed behind it, he staggered and nearly spurted blood. The young man looked at him with a serious face and asked, "So may I know where the physician examination is held?" To not even know where the physician examination is held and you still want to take the examination? It's at the physician hall over there. The guard leader was seething with rage, but he still managed to hold himself back. Pointing to the front, he replied with a trembling voice. Looking toward where the other party's finger was pointed, Zhang Xian saw a huge hall, and a plaque placed on top of the entrance that wrote Physician Hall. All right, thank you. May I trouble you to prepare the medicinal herbs that I just spoke of? I will come and claim them after I'm done with the physician examination. Upon knowing the location, Zhang Xian instructed the receptionist, Yoro, before heading over. Braggart. Upon seeing the other party leave, Yoro could no longer hold herself back and harumphed with clear disdain in her voice. She was already absolutely certain that this fellow was here to wreak havoc. Otherwise, who would attempt the physician examination despite knowing nothing at all? He does seem somewhat unreliable. Given the prestige associated with being a physician, how can it possible for anyone to pass the examination that easily? The guard leader shook his head as well. It is one thing if you have studied the way of medicine before, but to not even know where the physician examination is held and that a prescription is required to purchase medicinal herbs, it can't be clearer to see that you are a newbie. And yet, you still want to take the examination. Aren't you underestimating this occupation a little way too much? That may not necessarily be so. I recall that there's a person in our guild who managed to pass the 1-star physician examination despite not being an apprentice. A guard spoke up. Oh, you're speaking of 3-star physician Mu Hong? He is an exception. Having come from a lineage of physicians, he has been learning the way of medicine since young. He possesses true ability, that's why he's able to pass the 1-star physician examination straight. The guard leader said. The other party was right, there was indeed an exception in the guild. It was the famous physician Mu Hong. Even though physician Mu Hong had never taken any examination prior to passing his 1-star physician examination such that he wasn't even an apprentice then, he had been accompanying his father on diagnosis and treatment runs and he was already famous by then. He is just an arrogant lad, how can he be compared to physician Mu Hong? Yoro harumphed coldly. Physician Mu Hong had begun learning way of medicine from young, and by the age of 13, he was already treating patients by himself. Even though he had never taken the examination prior to that, he practically grew up in the physician guild and he was well aware of everything here. On the other hand, that fellow clearly knew nothing at all. Given the foolish and ignorant look on his face, and how he didn't even know of the prohibited medicinal herbs, how could the two of them possibly be the same? But no matter what, the other party is a teacher of Tianwu Academy. I don't think that he will not care for his reputation like that. The guard leader said. This, Yoro fell speechless. The standing of a teacher was beneath that of a physician, but due to their relationship with master teachers, it was an esteemed occupation as well. As an official teacher of Tianwu Academy, it was unlikely for him to abandon his pride to cause trouble at the physician guild. He might really possess true ability. Indeed, it's possible that he might, like physician Mu Hong, pass the 1-star physician examination straight and amaze everyone. The two guards held deep respect for teachers. Now that you speak of it, it isn't entirely impossible. Hearing the analysis of the others, Yoro hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Just as she was about to continue speaking, the young man who just left a moment ago returned and asked sheepishly. May I know what procedures are there to the physician examination? Also, what books do I have to read? Yoro. The guards. Starve cleric, I have one extra edited chapter at hand, so I'll launch a challenge. Post a phrase commonly used in the series that you find interesting, and if one of them receives 100 likes by today, I'll post another chapter. Chapter 331, Challenging the Guild Leader. Initially, they thought that the other party might really possess true capability, as it was unlikely that a teacher would cause trouble given their esteemed standing. However, after hearing the other party's words, they realized they were overthinking it. To not even know the procedures to the physician examination, the heck was he taking the examination for? Suppressing his anger, the guard leader said, Lu Laosher, since you don't even know the procedure for the physician examination, I think it is better for you to just drop the matter. Zhang Xian shook his head. I don't want to take the examination as well, but you just told me that it is impossible to buy those medicinal herbs if I'm not a physician. Alright, you just have to tell me what is tested on the physician examination, I'll settle the rest. The crowd tugged on their hair. We don't want to bother you either, just that, don't you think that you are going a little too far, attempting to take the physician examination despite knowing nothing at all? However, since you are so adamant to shame yourself, we'll wash our hands clean of this matter. Then displeased, the complexion of the guard leader darkened further. Even so, he still explained the procedures of the examination, similar to the examinations of other occupations. The physician examination tests one's theoretical knowledge and practical skills. After you enter the physician hall, there will be some specialized personnel to bring you around. Hearing those words, the young man nodded, turned around, and walked to the physician hall. Physician Hu, the one in charge of the physician hall, detests this kind of ignorant examinee who banks on sheer luck to pass. That fellow is probably in for a round of misfortune. I thought that teachers will at least conduct themselves with propriety in consideration of their standing. But from the looks of it, it seems like I was expecting too much to not even know the procedures of the physician examination. How can he possibly pass the examination? Indeed. If it was so easy to become a physician, there wouldn't be just 30 physicians in the entire city. Seeing how that fellow walked into the physician hall despite knowing nothing at all, everyone shook their heads. The guard leader initially thought that the other party might truly possess true capability. However, upon realizing that the other party was truly ignorant, he felt disdain toward the other party as well. It was often said that the academy's teachers were respectable and modest. After seeing this teacher, he realized that it was all bullshit. Have you seen a person who would dare to take the physician examination despite not knowing a single thing at all? Alright, Yero Xiaojie, we will continue our patrol. See you later. Eventually, the guard leader clasped his fist and prepared to leave. But just as he was about to leave, the ground beneath him suddenly shook. A loud chime reverberated within the physician guild. Dong! It seemed to originate from a huge bell, and under the deafening reverberation, even the ground tremored. What's going on? I've got no idea, but it sounds like it came from the physician hall. Physician hall? That seems to be the case. After hearing the sound, the patients who were lined up for a diagnosis burst into commotion. In contrast to the confusion of the patients, the guard leader's face turned ghastly pale, and he began to tremble uncontrollably. With a fearful voice, he uttered, "This fellow, it can't be that he barged into the wall of dilemma, wall of dilemma." What's that? Yero asked doubtfully. She was just a front receptionist. While she was roughly aware of the rules surrounding the physician examination, she didn't know the specific tests on the examination. The wall of dilemma is a place where the incurable illnesses are recorded, the illnesses that no one in the physician guild has been able to cure for the past century. The guard leader seemed as though he was about to cry. The illnesses that no one in the physician guild has been able to cure for the past century? Even a 3-star physician like Mu Hong? Yero was taken aback. In their physician guild branch, the most skilled physician was 3-star physician Mu Hong. If the illnesses that no one could cure were recorded on the wall, didn't that mean that even 3-star physician Mu Hong was helpless before them as well? Indeed, the guard leader nodded his head. Not just him, the physicians in our guild for the past few generations had been unable to do so as well. That's why it is called the Wall of Dilemma. If that's the case, why do you look so worried? Since it's a place where difficult illnesses are recorded, it shouldn't be a problem for him to enter, right? Yero was perplexed. She thought that it was a huge affair. In the end, didn't that teacher just enter the place where difficult illnesses were recorded? At most, the teacher could just back off after realizing his ignorance. As the guard leader of the physician guild, do you really need to be trembling uncontrollably like this over such a small matter? Yero wasn't the only one, the other guards were bewildered as well. Their leader had always been a calm person. Taking the encounter from a moment ago as example, even though he was infuriated by the other party's arrogance, he still remained calm and responded to his queries patiently and politely. Why would someone as calm as him become so nervous upon finding out that the other party had barged into this wall of dilemma? You all don't know what that place represents. Seeing the casual look on everyone's faces, the guard leader shook his head. What that place represents? That's right. The Wall of Dilemma is a place where only the guild leader of each generation is qualified to enter. Entering such a place means to challenge the incumbent guild leader for his position. With pale, trembling lips, the guard leader explained. Challenging the guild leader, for his position? Everyone felt their vision turning dark. What in the world was going on? Why would barging into the Wall of Dilemma equate challenging the guild leader? Written on the Wall of Dilemma are problems that had stumped the physicians of the guild for a long period of time. Seeing the doubt in everyone's eyes, the guard leader smiled bitterly and explained, in order to become the guild leader, one has to possess medical skills far surpassing the others so as to win the respect of the entire guild. Everyone nodded. It was natural that one had to possess skills far surpassing other members to become a guild leader of an occupation. Unlike cultivation, the way of medicine isn't something that can be quantified. You can't simply gauge a person's medical skills by how long the treatment takes. After all, a complete treatment involves many aspects such as the post-recovery care and checking whether any trauma was inflicted in the process of the treatment. A person might be able to treat a patient within 2 days, but in the end, he might only be treating the symptoms rather than the root of the problem, thus leaving room for the illness to make a comeback. On the other hand, another physician could take a whole month to treat the same patient, but he could be treating the root of the problem instead. Everyone nodded in agreement. The strength of a cultivator could be easily gauged via a fight. But for physicians, it was harder to quantify one's ability. Different physicians had different specializations, and the fastest treatment might not necessarily be the most effective one. This was even more so when the two physicians were around the same level. Thus, the Physician Guild came up with a way to determine if a physician was superior to another, the Wall of Dilemma. The guard leader continued, recorded on the wall are the most difficult problems the physicians of the guild have faced throughout the years, and only those who intend to challenge the current guild leader would enter its premise. The more problems one solve, the more advanced one's medical skill is deemed to be, and thus, the easier it will be for one to gain the respect of the entire guild. If one couldn't even solve a single problem, it will be taken as that the other party was causing trouble and challenging the guild leader's authority. As such, that person will be punished. This everyone blinked their eyes as they came to a realization. It was no wonder why he was so anxious. Despite knowing nothing at all, the other party barged into the Wall of Dilemma, an action taken as a challenge against guild leader. If he were to fail to solve any of the problems listed, he would be subjected to a severe punishment. On the other hand, they, who had misled him, might be implicated as well. But since the illnesses listed on the Wall of Dilemma are problems that no one in the guild is able to solve, even if you were to answer them wrong no one should know of it, right? After a moment of silence, Yoro asked. Since it was a wall full of questions that no one could solve, no one should be able to say for sure whether a person's answer was right or wrong. Even if that fellow were to answer randomly, he might just be able to smoke his way through. If only it was that simple, the guard leader smiled bitterly. The Wall of Dilemma is a unique spirit artifact that is linked to the headquarters. If someone challenges the Wall of Dilemma, a 4-star physician on the other side of the wall will check the answer personally. If he deems it to be correct, an orange glow will appear on the wall. If he deems it to be wrong, a red glow will appear instead. Linked to the headquarters. Glow. Everyone was stunned. If that was the case, it was impossible for that Lu Laoshi to falsify his results. Given how ignorantly that fellow acted just now, red glows would only appear again and again, and then it would be the end of them. Then that bell is, Yoro asked. That bell informs the entire physician guild that someone has triggered the Wall of Dilemma to challenge the guild leader. At this, the guard leader froze and pointed forward. We're done for. Looking toward where his finger was pointed at, the edges of everyone's mouths twitched. More than a dozen of the top echelons of the guild were currently walking toward them. Guild leader Mu Hong, 3-star physician Du Rao, physician Ching Feng. Every time a name was called, Yoro's eyebrows would twitch once. They were all figures in the upper echelon of the physician guild. The chiming of the bell had summoned all of them here. For someone to challenge him, it was clear how awful the guild leader Mu Hong's complexion would be. What happened? Guild leader Mu Hong immediately walked to the physician hall and asked imposingly. Reporting to the guild leader, a person has just entered, and he seems to be challenging the wall of dilemma. An apprentice who was done diagnosing a patient replied. He didn't see the situation clearly, but after hearing the bell, he heard a thing or two from the discussions in the surroundings. Challenging the wall of dilemma. Guild leader Mu Hong's eyebrow twitched. Someone was eyeing his seat. Who is it? I didn't get a good look at him. However, he seemed to came from over there, so the front receptionist might know something. The apprentice hesitated for a moment before replying. The receptionist? Call those guys over. Guild leader Mu Hong instructed. Yaro and the guards had no choice but to walk over with tearful faces. Speak, what happened? Who is the one who challenged the wall of dilemma? The guild leader spoke authoritatively. Reporting to the guild leader, it's a teacher from Tianwu Academy who goes by the surname of Lu. The guard leader trembled in fear, but he mustered his courage and answered. A teacher who goes by the surname of Lu. Physician Mu Hong blinked. Why would a teacher enter the wall of dilemma? He is here for the physician examination, so we directed him to the physician hall. We also have no idea how he managed to enter the wall of dilemma, the guard leader said with a quivering voice. He is here for the physician examination. How many stars is he? To challenge the wall of dilemma, is he a 3-star physician? But this doesn't make sense. Guild leader Mu Hong frowned as he contemplated over the matter. Since the other party dared to challenge the wall of dilemma and him, he had to be at least a 3-star physician, but when did such an incredible physician appear in Tianwu Academy? 3-star. The guard leader nearly fainted. Reporting to the guild leader, he doesn't have a rank yet, and he isn't even an apprentice. He isn't even an apprentice. And yet, he dares to challenge me. A dark line streaked across physician Mu Hong's forehead. Is his medical skills outstanding? Outstanding, the guard leader cried. It's possible that he doesn't know medicine at all. Chapter 332, Perfect Solution, he doesn't know medicine at all. Guild leader Mu Hong's body trembled. To dare to challenge him despite not knowing the slightest thing about medicine at all. When did the position of a guild leader become so cheap? What happened? Explain everything to me clearly. With a complexion so dark that it seemed as though one could squeeze ink from it, he bellowed. It's like that. The leader of the guards and Yaro explained the situation with Lu Laoshi in detail to guild leader Mu Hong. After hearing the words of the duo, regardless whether it was Mu Hong, Du Rao, Qing Feng, or the other physicians, they were all dumbfounded. How could there be such an eccentric person in the world to manage to stumble into the wall of dilemma like that? Wasn't he lucky? Guild leader, given that he has triggered the wall of dilemma, connection with the headquarters must have already been established. What should we do now? Physician Qing Feng asked. Upon the activation of the wall of dilemma, a bell would chime and the wall of dilemma would attempt to establish connection with the headquarters. Most likely, a 4-star physician would have already been stationed on the other side, waiting to assess the challenger. If they were to intrude into the test halfway, it was highly probable that they would incur the ire of the headquarters. What else can we do? We can only wait here until he's done. Since he doesn't even know the slightest thing about medicine, he would surely be unable to answer any of the questions. Once he fails, we'll teach him a lesson and kick him out. Mu Hong's complexion looked awful. Challenging the wall of dilemma didn't just undermine his authority and sully his prestige. More importantly, the headquarters would be alarmed of this farce as well. To allow such an ignorant oaf to challenge the wall of dilemma, just the thought of what the headquarters would think of them made Mu Hong tempted to kill the other party for such a blemish to appear on a Tier 1 Kingdom Physician Guild. Could the situation be any more darned? Yes. Knowing that the guild leader was truly enraged over this matter, the crowd didn't dare to even breathe loudly. Can we see the results of the wall of dilemma from here? While a gloomy atmosphere was looming in this area, there was huge bustle over at the apprentices and patients' side. The apprentices had finally understood what was going on and they immediately put aside their work to observe the abrupt situation out of curiosity. One of the more knowledgeable people in the crowd nodded. The wall of dilemma of the physician hall is constructed with a unique material similar to that used in the examination hall of the master-teacher pavilion. If the challenger inside were to submit an erroneous answer, the exterior wall of the room will flash red. On the other hand, if a correct answer is submitted, an orange glow will appear. Furthermore, there are different tiers to the answer as well. Tiers? That's right. Different techniques and medicinal herbs used in the treatment of the same illness would yield different effectiveness. As such, treatment methods can be classified as sub-pass, pass, good, and excellent. A ray of orange light represents sub-pass, 2 rays represent pass, 3 rays represent good, and 4 rays represent excellent. Back then, guild leader Mu Hong consecutively solved 4 illnesses on the wall of dilemma, and on top of that, every single treatment method he submitted ended up inducing 3 rays of orange light, dazzling the entire physician hall. It was truly an unforgettable sight for all that was present back then. Recalling that incredible scene back then, the faces of a few veterans of the guild reddened in agitation. Those illnesses were problems that had remained unsolved by the geniuses of the guild throughout the years. A total of 5 rays of orange light had appeared from the wall. This is perfect. A perfect answer. Upon seeing the sight, the mouths of a few veterans in the room twitched. They were rendered completely speechless by the sight. It was common knowledge that there were only 4 levels to a treatment method: sub-pass, pass, good, and excellent. But in truth, there was another level that few knew about, a level that only existed in the legends. A treatment method of that level was capable of solving an illness completely in the shortest period of time while using the most inexpensive and common medicinal herbs. It was known as perfect treatment method. Such treatment methods possessed absurd compatibility with the illness that not the slightest side effect would be derived from the treatment. Compared to this, all other treatment methods were no different from dirt. However, such level of treatment method existed only in the legends. In the several thousand years of history since the establishment of Tianwu Kingdom, no one had ever heard of the existence of a perfect treatment method. Yet, not only did that ignorant oaf actually manage to come up with such a treatment method. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? 5 rays of orange light. What in the world is going on? A perfect treatment method? The entire room burst into an uproar. Upon seeing this sight, guild leader Mu Hong felt a little lightheaded. He immediately turned to Yoro and the guard leader and glared at them. The heck? Didn't you say that the fellow who went in was an ignorant fellow? Explain to me what is going on. Tears streamed down the face of the guard leader. Brother, I thought you didn't know anything at all. How in the world did you manage to solve the incurable illnesses of the wall of dilemma? Furthermore, for it to induce 5 rays of orange light, a perfect treatment method? He is probably just lucky. Perhaps he will fail at the next question. Biting his tongue, the guard leader could only force his way through. However, before he could finish his words, the wall shook once more. Wang 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 wang. Another 5 rays of orange light burst into the surroundings once more. Another perfect treatment method? What the heck is he? Seeing the second instance of 5 rays of orange light, another huge uproar exploded in the hall. The guard leader felt a stinging sensation on his face, and he nearly spurted blood and died from frustration. He had just said that the other party was only lucky when the other party immediately overthrew his words with his actions. Even if you are so eager to slap my face, surely you don't have to do it so quickly. Wang 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 wang. However, that wasn't the end of it yet. The light grew brighter and brighter, and the intervals between them grew shorter and shorter. It was as if they had stepped into a festive firework celebration. Wave after wave of orange light assaulted their vision. 3 times. 4 times. 5 times, 18 times. It was only less than an hour since the appearance of the first instance of the 5 rays of orange light, and it had already appeared consecutively for another 17 times. Slowly, the shock grew into numbness. Guild leader Mu Hong's lips quivered. At this point, he was already on the verge of tears. He thought that he could already be considered as a genius given how he induced 3 rays of orange light for 4 times. He thought that no one in Tianwu Kingdom would be able to match his feat. However, after seeing this sight he realized that his accomplishment was truly nothing at all. The other party doesn't know medicine? What a joke! If the other party doesn't know medicine, then what do I count as? Am I worse than an ignorant oaf? Guild leader, seeing Mu Hong's current state, the guard leader called cautiously after noticing the latter's daze. Guild leader, your head. I am no longer the guild leader, that fellow inside is. Mu Hong flung his sleeves furiously. As long as one's result in the wall of dilemma surpassed that of the previous guild leader, one would automatically take his place. Mu Hong had only managed to induce 3 rays of orange light 4 times, but the other party had achieved the level of perfect for 18 times straight. At this point, there was already no way to dispute this. In other words, that fellow inside was already the guild leader. Yes, the mouth of the guard leader twitched, and he hurriedly shut his mouth fearfully. He was afraid that this physician Mu Hong would go on a rampage and kill him on the spot if he were to speak any further. He Ro shuddered fearfully. She felt so much regret that her guts were turning green. If only she knew that the fellow inside possessed incredible medical skill that was superior to even that of the guild leader, she would have never dared to act so rudely to him. Considering how disdainfully she treated him at the start, it was about time for her to resign from her job and go into hiding. In contrast to the gloomy atmosphere floating around guild leader Mu Hong and the others, the majority of the crowd in the hall was rowdy, excited by this incredible sight. 5 rays of orange light. All 18 of those solutions are a perfect treatment method. To be able to see such a formidable physician overcome the wall of dilemma, I feel like I haven't lived my life in vain. Hurry up and inform the old master. Wasn't his illness listed on the wall of dilemma? There is finally a cure for him. The commotion slowly crescendoed as everyone's eyes burned with excitement. The explanations and descriptions from the apprentices and veterans had given them a rough idea of the current situation. To actually solve 18 difficult illnesses listed on the wall of dilemma, and on top of that, for all of them to reach the level of perfect treatment method, the medical skill of the person inside had already surpassed the capability of a 3-star physician. It was a huge benefit to have such an incredible physician in Tianwu Kingdom. After all, no matter how much money they had, if they couldn't find a sufficiently capable physician to treat them, it would be for naught. There are only a total of 20 questions on the wall of dilemma. Could he really solve all of them in one go? Putting aside his dismay, physician Mu Hong stared at the wall before him intently. Other people might not be aware of how many questions there were on the wall of dilemma, but as the previous guild leader and someone who had challenged the wall of dilemma, it was natural that he was aware of the situation on site. Even though these questions had accumulated over several centuries, every succeeding guild leader would always strike a few questions off the wall, leaving only a total of 20 questions. The other party had already solved the 18th, and every single answer was on the level of perfect. Could this fellow really solve all 20 questions in one go? Impossible. The final question is an illness who no one was able to solve in the past several centuries. It is impossible for him to solve it. Recalling the final question, Mu Hong clenched his jaws. Even though the other illnesses were difficult as well, this concept of difficult was only limited to Tianwu Kingdom. To the physicians in Xianyuan Kingdom or other more advanced regions, those problems were nothing more than a walk in the park. However, the final question was an illness that stumped even the physicians of conferred kingdoms. It was an extremely rare and troublesome illness. Rumor has it that a 5-star physician had once attempted to find a solution to the illness, but in the end, he wasn't even able to find the root of the problem, leaving him at a loss to even where he should start. Weng. Just as his thoughts were wandering around, orange rays of light filled the hall once more. The 19th question was also solved with a perfect grade. It's down to the last question now. Physician Mu Hong's breathing quickened. Chapter 333, we don't know. Either a middle-aged man was seated on the lofty throne within Tianwu Royal Palace. The Emperor of Tianwu Kingdom, Mo Tianxue. You say that someone challenged the guild leader in the Physician Guild, and that he solved 19 consecutive questions on the Wall of Dilemma? Mo Tianxue was staring at a guard in disbelief. He was well aware of the fact that the questions on the Wall of Dilemma were difficult illnesses which had baffled innumerable genius physicians over the years. Even if a 4-star physician came, he would definitely be unable to solve all of them in a single go. Yet, a seemingly unimpressive fellow had solved 19 successive questions. On top of that, his solutions were on the level of perfection. This is insanity. It is the unmistakable truth. A gray-robed man clasped his fist respectfully. This gray-robed man's aura was rather irregular, but one could still tell that he was a Zongshi realm expert. Those who were familiar with the kingdom's workings would definitely recognize his identity as a member of the most secretive army in Tianwu Kingdom, Shadow Squad. The Shadow Squad was an organization directly controlled by Mo Tianxue, and they often carried out unhonorable missions in the darkness. With such a huge affair at the Physician Guild, all of them rushed to the royal palace in first time to inform the emperor of the news. To be capable of solving so many questions on the Wall of Dilemma and provide perfect treatment methods over and above all, that person's mastery in the way of medicine has most probably already reached the standard of a 4-star or even 5-star physician. Mo Tianxue clenched his fists tightly. Indeed. If he were to offer his services to the kingdom, the traumas that occur in the guards' training would be resolved easily. Perhaps, with his help, Your Majesty might even be able to achieve a breakthrough to reach that level. The gray-robed man said. You're right. Mo Tianxue's eyes lit up. Then, with an anxious look, he asked, have you found out who he is? There was no such thing as a perfect cultivation technique. As such, all kinds of traumas would appear in one's cultivation. Even though most of them do not pose a threat to one's life and do not affect one's ability to exert their strength, it locks down one's cultivation, making it difficult to progress further. If one can solve his traumas, there is a high possibility that he will be able to advance another step in his cultivation. But of course, that is only a possibility. After all, a physician is only capable of treatment. Unlike master teachers, a physician is incapable of offering pointers for one to achieve a breakthrough. Even so, resolving one's trauma would extend one's longevity and make one more spirited. This is also the reason why physician is one of the top occupations of the upper 9 paths. We have already looked into the matter. His name is Lu Cheng, and he is a newly recruited teacher in Tianwu Academy. At 24 this year, his cultivation is at Tongxian Realm primary stage. He passed the teacher examination in Quanhai City's teacher guild, and he once took a class at Quanhai City for a year. Here is his information. After which, the gray-robed man passed a piece of paper over. The fact that the Shadow Squad was able to gather comprehensive information on Lu Qing so quickly bore testimony to their fearsome prowess. Grabbing the paper, Mo Tianxue swiftly browsed through the contents. All kinds of personal information on Lu Cheng had been recorded on the document. The identity that the Master Teacher Pavilion created for Zhang Xian was truly impeccable. There were no flaws, and even the Shadow Squad was only able to gather this much. To think that an ordinary teacher in Quanhai City would possess such astounding medical skills. Help me prepare another identical set of the gift that was meant for Master Teacher Zhang Xian, and as soon as he leaves the Wall of Dilemma, we will head over to greet him. After browsing through his information, Mo Tianxue affirmed that there was nothing wrong with his background and he gestured excitedly. The present for Zhang Shi. The gray-robed man was taken aback. As a close aide of the emperor, he knew how valuable the gift prepared for Zhang Shi was. Indeed. A talent of his level is already on par with Zhang Shi. In fact, his usefulness surpasses even that of Zhang Shi. Mo Tianxue reasoned. Yes. The gray-robed man nodded. All right, let's go. Accompany me to the Physician Guild. After which, Mo Tianxue dismounted his throne and began forward without any hesitation. Tianwu Academy. Principal Xia was sitting gloomily alone in his courtyard. No matter who it was, it would be hard for one not to feel embarrassed getting criticized by a new teacher. Principal, he was thinking of a way to vent his frustration when an elder rushed into his courtyard. What's wrong? Principal Xia frowned. That Lu Laoshi went to challenge the wall of dilemma. An elder said. Challenge the wall of dilemma? To provoke guild leader Mu Hong, is there something wrong with that fellow's head? Principal Xia's body swayed, and he nearly blacked out. Instead of teaching your class properly, what are you doing over at the Physician Guild? On top of that, challenging their wall of dilemma and provoking their guild leader, you must be mad. He is truly a problematic teacher. Nevertheless, he possesses true capability and will become a pillar of the academy in the future. We mustn't allow anything to happen to him. The other party had embarrassed him in public, but as fellow teachers, he felt obligated to stand up for him. Bring me my name scroll, I will visit guild leader Mu Hong now. Hopefully, he won't pursue the matter on my account. No, that's not enough. Challenging the wall of dilemma is equivalent to an attempt to wrest authority from the current guild leader. Guild leader Mu Hong won't allow this matter to simply rest. Let's go to the Master Teacher Pavilion to look for Pavilion Master Jiang. With his help, the situation should be much easier to resolve. Thus, Principal Xia stood up and prepared to rush to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Cough cough Principal, wait for a moment. Allow me to finish my words first, the elder felt stifled. The principal had reacted violently after hearing a single sentence. He couldn't find a chance to cut into his words at all. What's the use of talking about it? I know guild leader Mu Hong's temper well, he will definitely fly into a rage upon seeing someone in his position. Even though that Lu Laoshi is a little arrogant, he is still a member of our Tianwu Academy. We mustn't allow anything to happen to him. Otherwise, the pride of our academy will be sullied. Principal Xia swung his hands and rushed out of the courtyard. However, barely after he took 2 steps, the elder stopped him. Principal, allow me to first finish my words, the elder felt faint-headed. Why are you so agitated? Can't you allow me to finish my words? Speak. Can it be that we're already too late and that guild leader Mu Hong has already laid his hands on him? Seeing the anxious look on the other party's face, an ominous omen loomed over his mind. Gedeng, Principal Xia's heart skipped a beat. That's not it. Lu Laoshi has solved 19 questions on the wall of dilemma consecutively, and he provided a perfect treatment method for every single one of them right now. The entire Physician Guild is in an uproar. Afraid that the other party would jump into conclusion once more, the elder spoke quickly. Solved 19 questions on the wall of dilemma. Provided a perfect treatment method for each of them. Principal Xia was taken aback. It took him moments before he managed to digest the other party's words, and his eyes nearly popped out from its sockets. You mean to say that Lu Laoshi has already broken Physician Mu Hong's record and he is now the new guild leader of the Physician Guild? Yes, the elder flashed a bitter smile. When he first heard this news himself, he also felt as though the world had gone mad. His condition then wasn't any better than that of the current Principal Xia. How is this possible? Principal Xia froze in shock. Oblivious to the huge uproar he had caused, Zhang was staring at the final question on the wall of dilemma. The Library of Heaven's path could only reflect flaws, it couldn't provide a solution to these flaws. When a person is ill, it means that a flaw has appeared on him, resulting in his current condition. As long as one is able to identify the crux of the problem and work backward, it isn't too difficult to treat an illness. That was precisely the reason why, even though the first 19 questions had stumped many talented physicians, Zhang was able to solve them easily, providing perfect treatment solutions without thinking for long. Innate muscular deficiency resulting in the lack of strength in one's body and a lifespan of only 20 years. How do we treat this? The final question carved on the wall of dilemma was just 2 short sentences, and it seemed to be simple. Innate muscular deficiency. With a will of his mind, a book appeared in Zhang Xian's head. Zhang Xian had taken in a substantial number of books in the Master Teacher Pavilion. As physician was one of the top occupations of the upper 9 paths, there was a substantial collection within. It just so happened that there was an introduction on the illness. Innate muscular deficiency results in the stagnation of the growth in one's muscles. A person born with such a condition can only lie on the bed, unable to exercise or cultivate. There was only a brief introduction to the illness in the book. There wasn't a solution provided. Let's see whether there is any solution to it. Flaws. Placing his hand on the wall, Zhang Xian thought. Wang. A book appeared in his mind. Innate muscular deficiency refers to a lack in strength in one's muscles. Flaws. An inborn damage in one's meridians. On the portion of the book detailing the flaws of innate muscular deficiency, the locations of the damaged meridians, acupoints, and body parts were stated. This, with a glance, Zhang Xian suddenly froze. This illness is actually the opposite of the Heaven's Path Golden Body. He had never heard of the illness, but based on the flaws, he realized that it bore striking resemblance to the cultivation method of Heaven's Path Golden Body. That was to say, one could easily solve this illness through the cultivation method of Heaven's Path Golden Body. The Heaven's Path Golden Body shouldn't be leaked out, but this is a part of the physician examination. If I were to answer this question inaccurately, I might not be able to become an official physician. Feeling distressed, Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella. He didn't know about the wall of dilemma, and up until now, he still thought that he was only taking the physician examination. Since I know the specific points where the flaws appear in, as long as one uses Zongshi to nourish these few spots, the illness should still be treated even without the cultivation method of Heaven's Path Golden Body. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xian suddenly slapped his forehead. All along, he had been thinking in the capacity of an individual, neglecting the fact that the Zongshi could come from an external source. As long as he wrote down points that needed to be nourished with Zongshi and avoid mentioning the formula in detail, the Heaven's Path Golden Body would not be leaked. After all, the crux to all cultivation techniques lies in the formula to propel one's Zongshi. All right. After confirming the treatment, Zhang Xian picked up a brush and started writing on the wall. It'll probably be impossible for him to solve this question. Physician Mu Hong stood stiffly before the physician hall with his hands clenched by his sides. The other party had already surpassed his feat, replacing him as the new guild leader. No matter how depressed he got over this matter, this was already a fact. At this moment, all he wanted to know was whether this Lu fellow would be able to solve all 20 problems on the wall of dilemma with a perfect grade. If that really happens, the Tianwu Kingdom Physician Guild would gain great prestige because of this. However, even 4-star physicians would be puzzled by the final question. Is it even possible for that Lu Laoshi to succeed? Wang. Just as they were anxiously waiting for the result, the wall before them started to tremor once more. The results are out. Everyone waited with bated breaths. Physician Mu Hong stiffened in nervousness. Who? A bright ray of light radiated from the wall. It's a ray of white light. What does white light means? Red light should indicate failure while orange light reflects a correct answer. Why would there be a white light? Upon seeing the light, everyone became flabbergasted. Even Physician Mu Hong widened his eyes in astonishment. The answers should either be right or right. In other words, the light should either be red or orange. For a white light to be emanated instead, what the heck? Can the wall in the physician hall have spoiled? That should be impossible, right? Everyone blinked in disbelief. Wait, something seems to be appearing. Just when everyone was overwhelmed with shock, someone from within the crowd shouted suddenly. Swiftly turning toward the smooth wall, for words slowly floated into appearance, we don't know either. Starve cleric, sorry to delay updates on a cliffhanger, straight face, I've posted it on my Discord already, but my editor and I have been rather busy lately, so do pardon us. I won't be able to guarantee updates for the next 2 days, but rest assured that we'll make up for the chapters lost over the weekend. Chapter 334, Guild Leader, we don't know either. What does that mean? I have no idea too. It is said that answers to the Wall of Dilemma are appraised personally by 4-star masters we don't know either, to appear. Does that mean that even 4-star physicians are unable to determine whether the answer Lu Laoshi gave is correct? That can't be true, right? If that's the case, doesn't that mean that Lu Laoshi's medical skill surpasses that of a 4-star physician? Everyone stared at the wall before them dumbfounded. The 4 words, "we don't know either," left everyone faint-headed. The ones on the other side of the Wall of Dilemma are 4-star physicians. And, even they are unable to determine whether the answer is correct or wrong. The heck? Lu Laoshi, exactly what kind of answer did you give? Such that other side does not dare to reject it outright, even admitting its ignorance? The corners of Physician Mu Hong's lips twitched. He found himself swaying from side to side, unable to maintain his balance. He thought he had imagined every circumstance possible, even that of 5 rays of orange light. Never in his wildest dreams had he expected that the other party would admit to not knowing the answer. Don't know your head. All of you are 4-star physicians. To speak of such words before so many people, are you still in your right mind? Wang. Before they could recover from their shock, the 4 words on the wall had faded and another line appeared. We will announce our judgment 10 days later. These words disappeared slowly as well. Seems like the other side is truly unsure. They will need to report to a higher level branch or look for a patient with innate muscular deficiency in order to test out the treatment method. Even though it was said that the Wall of Dilemma was connected to the headquarter, this headquarter actually referred to another branch which was just a tier higher than that of the Tianwu Physician Guild branch. After all, the headquarter was incomparably powerful, filled with 8-star to 9-star physicians. How can it possibly be connected to small place like Tianwu Kingdom Physician Guild? It was just like how Zhang Xian requested for a Unravel-ine pill from the headquarter in the Tianxian Kingdom Apothecary Guild back then. In truth, their communications had merely reached Tianwu Kingdom, and Apothecary Hong Yun was dispatched. Otherwise, if everyone were to contact the headquarter for all random and miscellaneous matters, wouldn't it die from exhaustion? We will give our judgment 10 days later. So does it mean that he solved the question or not? The crowd was stunned. Even if he answered the last question wrongly, this Lu Laoshi has already answered 19 questions with a perfect grade. He has already surpassed guild leader Mu Hong, making him the new guild leader. Someone commented. Everyone came to a realization. So what if that fellow got the final question wrongly? The results had already far surpassed that of any previous guild leader. Without a doubt, he had already become the new guild leader. However, wasn't his purpose here the physician examination? If he doesn't have a rank beforehand, what rank should he be assigned? Someone raised his doubt. Suddenly, the entire room fell silent. Indeed, if he doesn't possess any rank as a physician from before, how should we handle this situation? He was able to solve all of the questions on the Wall of Dilemma, even forcing 4-star physicians to admit their ignorance. The level of mastery of his medical skill definitely far surpasses that of a 3-star, perhaps even reaching the level of a 5-star. However, since even the guild wasn't able to evaluate such a high-ranked physician, how can they issue such an emblem to him? Don't worry, the answer will be out in 10 days. Once the answer is determined, the headquarter will decide his rank personally, so we don't have to worry too much. A 2-star physician said. The crowd nodded. That made sense as well. This shouldn't be a matter within their consideration. Given how the other party challenged the Wall of Dilemma and solved so many questions, even jotting down an answer beyond the understanding of 4-star physicians, this problem should be one for the headquarter to bear. There wasn't a need for them to think so much. Jia. They were still discussing when the door to the physician hall opened and Zhang Xian walked out. Upon seeing the huge crowd gathered outside, and that all of the gazes were on him, Zhang Xian was given a shock. What is going on? He had merely taken a physician examination. Why was there such a huge crowd, and why were all of them looking at him? Glancing around, he finally found the leader of the guards in Yaro, and the hurried over, "Why is the examination different? What you told me so, have I passed the examination?" According to their words, the physician examination should be no different from that of other occupations. Yet, after he went in, he didn't see anyone, only a wall which kept posing questions to him. It was completely different from what they said. It can't be that I took the wrong examination. Will they fail me for this, Gu Guild leader? You are jesting. The leader of the guards trembled uncontrollably. Guild leader? Zhang Xian was stunned. He stared at the duo, and just he was about to ask them what they meant, more than a dozen of physicians with an emblem pinned on their chests walked over and clasped their fists, paying our respects to Guild leader Lu. Guild leader Lu. What does this mean? Zhang Xian was dumbfounded. He had no idea what was going on. It is just a physician examination. Why is everyone calling me guild leader? Did they eat something wrong this morning? Guild leader Lu challenged the wall of dilemma and solved 19 questions consecutively. As such, you have become the new leader of our physician guild. Physician Mu Hong stepped forward. New guild leader. Zhang Xian blinked his eyes. Becoming a guild leader just by answering a few questions? Isn't this too much of a child's play? The others swiftly explained the situation to him, and upon comprehending what was going on, Zhang Xian went speechless. He had only intended to take the physician examination. Never in his dreams did he expect to cause such a huge commotion and become the guild leader of the physician guild. Even so, everything had already happened, and there was nothing much he could do. Remembering the initial aim he had in mind coming to the physician guild, he turned to Yaro and asked, "Then since I became the guild leader, do I have to write to purchase white angelica flower, crimson-edged leaf, wolf venom grass, all of these medicinal herbs?" Yaro cried. She had just said that the other party didn't have the qualifications to purchase it, and he went on immediately to become the guild leader of the physician guild. This face slap. Since you are the guild leader, of course you do have the qualifications to purchase these medicinal herbs. However, we don't have all of the herbs you want here. Upon knowing about the entire situation, Mu Hong hesitated for a moment before explaining to the other party. Physicians do utilize poison in their treatments, but it is extremely rare. While the guild had white angelica flower, crimson-edged leaf, and such medicinal herbs, it didn't have the more potent poisonous medicinal herbs. Then bring me those that can be found here first. Zhang Xian said. Mu Hong replied and issued some instructions to Yaro. It didn't take long for Yaro to return with a huge bag of medicinal herbs. After taking a look, Zhang Xian verified that all except 2 of the medicinal herbs he needed were inside. Gold leaf spark twig and 9 worms flower are lethal poison, so we don't have any of them here. However, the poison hall will definitely have them. Mu Hong said. Poison hall. Zhang Xian shook his head. Naturally, Zhang Xian knew that the poison hall had them as well. However, it would take him 4 to 5 days just for a to-and-fro trip to the Red Lotus City. On top of that, he would require an additional 10 days to tread through the Red Lotus Range to arrive at and return from the Poison Hall. In total, the journey would take at least half a month. By the time he returned, it would already be way past 10 days. Right, I heard that Pavilion Master Jiang likes collecting valuable medicinal herbs. You might be able to find those 2 herbs from him. After hesitating for a moment, Mu Hong suddenly recalled something and said. Pavilion Master Jiang. All right. Zhang Xian nodded. It might have been difficult for him to obtain those 2 valuable medicinal herbs from anyone else, but Pavilion Master Jiang was his student. As long as he appeared before the other party as Yang Xian, obtaining these 2 medicinal herbs shouldn't be a problem at all. How much do all of these medicinal herbs cost? Keeping the medicinal herbs into his storage ring, Zhang Xian asked. A total of 14 million gold coins. Mu Hong clasped his hand. 14 million gold coins. Zhang Xian was astounded. He thought that it would only cost a few 100,000 gold coin. For it add up to 14 million gold coin. This was daylight robbery, but considering that he was already the guild leader, it was impossible for the other party to lie to him blatantly in public. Thus, he could only hand over a huge wad of cash helplessly. 10 million might be a huge sum, but Zhang Xian accrued quite a substantial wealth back when he was still in Tianxian Kingdom. As such, he was still able to bear with such expenditure. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. Physician Mu Hong, I will only serve as an honorary guild leader, so I'll be depending on you to deal with the matters of the guild. Zhang Xian only came here just to buy medicinal herbs. Since he had already achieved his goal, there was no need for him to remain here. Thus, he clasped his fist and bided farewell. Ah! Everyone thought that the new guild leader would immediately attempt to conduct a reorganization of the entire guild. After all, most newly appointed leaders tended to flaunt their authority by trying to instill new changes to the organization. Yet, contrary to their expectations, the other party simply dumped everything on Physician Mu Hong and left. This left everyone dumbfounded. Farewell. Ignoring the bewildered gazes of the crowd, Zhang Xian walked out of the Physician Guild. It didn't take long before he disappeared from their sight. He wasn't interested in being a guild leader or whatsoever. His only goal at the moment was to successfully advance as a 2-star master teacher so as to gain the authority to look up the affairs of Emperor Kong Shi and find the solution to his innate fetal poison. There was nothing more important than this. What happened? After Zhang Xian left, everyone was silent for a long time. At this moment, a perplexed elder suddenly walked into the guild. Physician Hu. You aren't at the physician hall. Upon seeing the elder, the crowd froze in shock. Physician Hu was the physician in charge of the physician examinations. How in the world was he only walking into the guild at this moment? I just went out for a moment. What's going on? Physician Hu had been away the entire time, so he had no idea what was going on. He was just perplexed as to why such a huge crowd, not to mention, guild leader Mu Hong and the other influential elders, was gathered here. Went out for a moment, everyone was speechless. They had considered the possibility that Lu Laoshi might have intentionally challenged the wall of dilemma. But judging from how Physician Hu wasn't around then, there was a high chance that the other party really stumbled into the room accidentally. But yet, he still managed to solve all of the questions on the wall of dilemma. Does it have to be so darned? You all are saying that in the hour I was gone, someone barged into the physician hall and solved all of the questions on the wall of dilemma with perfect treatment methods? Soon, someone explained the situation to Physician Hu, and in that instant, Physician Hu could only hear thunder rumbling in his head. For such a matter to happen while he was gone, it seems like he wouldn't be able to escape the blame for neglecting his responsibility. The ruckus that Zhang Xian's successful challenge of the Wall of Dilemma caused wasn't just limited to Tianwu Kingdom. On the other end of the Wall of Dilemma, a few elders were gathered together. They were all staring at one another blankly. The innate muscular deficiency is a terminal disease. Back then, physician Fei Qing attempted to solve this affliction, but even he fell in defeat before it. In the end, he could only watch as his patient fell into death's embrace. The answer that physician gave us, can it really be the right treatment method to the illness? That I don't know either, but there are two ways to check on it. We can either report it upward or we can try the solution on someone with innate muscular deficiency. I remember that the second princess of the alliance suffers from innate muscular deficiency. Indeed. Prepare the carriages, let's head off to the alliance head residence now. The few elders stood up simultaneously. Chapter 335, Myriad Kingdom Alliance. There were countless kingdoms like Tianxian and Tianwu scattered all over the continent. The ranks of a kingdom are as follows: unranked, Tianxian Kingdom, Tier 2 Kingdom, Beiwu Kingdom, Tier 1 Kingdom, Tianwu Kingdom, and Conferred Kingdom. Due to the multitude of kingdoms, conflict and war were inevitable. Thus, in order to mediate the conflicts among the kingdoms, an existence transcending beyond the system of kingdoms emerged. Myriad Kingdom Alliance. The Wall of Dilemma was connected to the Physician Guild of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. The alliance head who those elders spoke of was the most authoritative figure within the alliance, the one whom all emperors bowed down to and dared not defy. Soon, the carriage arrived at the alliance head residence. Report to the alliance head that guild leader Meng and physician Hong from the Physician Guild requests an audience. Yes. Soon, under the lead of the guards, the physicians walked into the palace-like alliance head residence. You're saying that you found a way to treat Liener? Arriving at the main hall, a middle-aged man looked at them with glowing eyes. He exuded an aura of authority and power which all would defer to. We aren't sure about whether the treatment method is effective or not, so we would like to. Guild leader Meng's face flushed as he hesitated for a moment before continuing, try it out, audacious. As the most authoritative man in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, it was already a huge torture for him to watch helplessly as his daughter suffer. Yet, these physicians were saying that they want to experiment an unverified treatment method on his daughter. If something wrong were to happen, who could bear the responsibility? Are you suggesting to experiment with my daughter's life? Raising his eyebrows, a menacing aura emanated from that middle-aged man. In an instant, the two physicians felt as though they were suddenly plunged into massive storm, and the world was ripping apart before them. The alliance head of the Myriad King Alliance wasn't a hereditary position but a nominated one. Without absolute strength, it was impossible for one to rise up to the position. I dare not to. Guild leader Meng's face paled. Exhaling deeply, he said, Alliance head, please allow me to finish my words first. If you don't wish to have the princess take on this risk, then we won't say any more on the matter. The middle-aged man nodded gravely. We are indeed helpless before the illness the princess is suffering from, but just today, a physician from a Tier 1 kingdom has delivered us a plausible treatment method to verify. Guild leader Meng said. Upon hearing that it was a treatment method from a Tier 1 kingdom, the middle-aged man's complexion turned even more awful. Even a 5-star physician of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance was unable to solve the matter. What kind of solution could a measly physician from a Tier 1 kingdom possibly offer? Are you jesting with me? But even though the middle-aged man was infuriated, he didn't say a thing. He simply stared at the duo coldly, waiting silently to see what they had to say. Alliance head, you must be thinking how absurd it must be for us to take the treatment method from a measly Tier 1 kingdom for real, but if you were to see the treatment methods that person sent prior to that, you won't be thinking the same. As though reading the thoughts of the other party, a bitter smile flashed across guild leader Meng's face. That person challenged the Wall of Dilemma, and in a single hour, he solved 19 questions. On top of that, all of the solutions he gave reached the level of perfect. All 19 solutions are at the level of perfect. The middle-aged man was taken aback. Are you certain of this? The Physician Guild's Wall of Dilemma was where all the difficult illnesses uncovered over the years were recorded. One could already be considered as a genius among geniuses if one could solve a question or two on it. To solve 19 at once, and for all of the solutions to be perfect, this meant that the other party's comprehension of the way of medicine had already reached an incredibly high level. Yes. This is the treatment method he proposed for the last question. His idea is extremely novel, and none of us here have ever seen something like this before. Upon recalling that the second princess is afflicted with the same illness, we came over in hopes of trying it. If it's really effective, the princess will be able to recover from her affliction. Guild leader Meng said. The middle-aged man hesitated. There wasn't a single person in the world who would be willing to allow his own daughter act as a guinea pig. Other than the method he proposed, we truly can't think of any other solutions. Furthermore, the second princess doesn't have much time left. Thus, I beseech you to give it a try. Guild leader Meng clasped his fist. Those afflicted with innate muscular deficiency were fated to be unable to reach their 20s. The princess was already 19 this year, and her condition was deteriorating with every single passing day. Even if this treatment method was ineffective, it was much better than doing nothing at all. All right. I'll be troubling you then. After a long moment of silence, the middle-aged man closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. If there was any other choice, he would have never allowed his daughter to undergo such risk. Soon, the princess was brought over. "Pardon my rudeness." Taking a deep breath, guild leader Meng recalled the treatment method written on the wall of dilemma and drove the Zongshi in her body. Woo 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 woo. The wind howled. The strength of a 4-star physician had already surpassed that of Jizuan realm. Even if he didn't come into direct contact with the other party, he was still able to send a surge of Zongshi into the other party's acupoints to clear her trauma. Peng 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 peng. Soon, an immense amount of Zongshi was sent through the other party's acupoints and meridians according to the treatment method detailed on the wall of dilemma. Who? Exhaling deeply, guild leader Meng wiped the sweat off his forehead. There was simply too many acupoints and meridians one had to deal with in the treatment method. Furthermore, many of these meridians and acupoints were narrow, and thus, he had to concentrate deeply. It was fortunate that he possessed superior medical skills and a high cultivation, otherwise, a single careless mistake could easily spell the other party's death. I wonder if it's effective. After carrying out the instructions on the treatment method strictly, guild leader Meng glanced at the second princess worriedly. But with just this single glance, his entire body shuddered and his eyeballs were popped out from their sockets. The second princess, who was still lying completely motionless a moment ago, suddenly leaped off the bed and smashed her fist into the ground, causing stone fragments to fly everywhere. Rendered speechless by the sight before them, the other physicians trembled in astonishment as their lower jaws fell to the ground. The middle-aged man stared at the situation with a dumbfounded expression. At this point, he was already on the verge of going insane. His second daughter had been diagnosed with innate muscular deficiency at birth. Pain and suffering followed her as though they were her shadows, and immobility had always been something she had to cope with. Making use of his connections as the most influential person in the Myriad Kingdom alliance, he had invited the most formidable of physicians from all locations, but all of them were helpless before her affliction. He thought that it would be yet another disappointment. Never in his dreams did he expect that she would really be cured of her affliction this time around. More importantly, shouldn't recovery be a slow process? Shouldn't one start from moving their fingers before walking around? How in the world was she able to leap off the bed right after the treatment was completed, and not to mention, smash through rock with her fist? This was way too exaggerated. Liener, you've recovered? Unable to believe his eyes, the alliance head asked. Father, I have recovered fully. Furthermore, I feel boundless strength surging through my body. The lady chuckled as she stomped on the ground. Who? A rock tile flew up, and the lady struck the tile with her palm. Pang! Fragments flew around the room. The crowd. For an innate muscular deficiency patient to abruptly become a powerful person with overwhelming muscle strength with just a short treatment, even if the treatment method was effective, was way too effective. Guild leader Meng, may I know from which kingdom did the person who presented the treatment method come from? I would like to thank him personally. Seeing her daughter walking around healthily as though an ordinary person, the middle-aged man was so excited that his eyes were gleaming. Yes, he came from a remote Tier 1 kingdom near Xianyuan Conferred Kingdom. Guild leader Meng pondered for a moment before replying. Father, there's no need for you to do so. Since I have recovered, I would like to go out and walk around. I will meet and thank the person who saved me personally. The lady chuckled. All right then. The middle-aged man nodded his head. Naturally, Zhang Xian was oblivious to the matters occurring at the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. At this moment, he had already altered his features to take on the appearance of Yang Xian, and he was currently on his way to the Master Teacher Pavilion. After taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped. Wouldn't it be inappropriate for me to meet Jiang Shu like that? Yang Xian, who he was impersonating was supposed to be a master teacher ranked above 3-star. Given his standing, if he were to travel all the way to the Master Teacher Pavilion to look for Jiang Shu, he might incur the other party's suspicion instead. He was confident in fooling others, but having taken the master-teacher examination, he understood how fearsome the eyes of master-teachers could be. The slightest carelessness might possibly cast doubt upon his identity or even give him away. I should look for Lu Ling and the others and have them bring Jiang Shu over to me. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xian decided on another course of action. It was perfectly normal for a master teacher of Yang Xian's level to summon his student if he wanted to meet him. It would hurt his prestige instead if he were to head there personally to look for the other party. As Zhang Shi's students, Zhao Ye and the others were considered as celebrities in the capital. As such, it wasn't too easy for him to find their residence. Looks like that fellow Bai Chan at least knows how he should act. Upon seeing the residence, Zhang Xian chuckled. He immediately knew that his threat was effective. Otherwise, it would surely be impossible for Lu Ling, Zhao Ye, and the others to find such a huge residence in the vicinity of the master-teacher pavilion. After ascertaining the location, Zhang Xian walked over. Soon, he was already standing at the entrance. "Old master, you're back." Just as Zhang Xian was thinking about how he should explain his identity to the guards to enter, Sun Chong suddenly appeared and welcomed him. The latter was so agitated that the fats on his face were bouncing around vigorously. Sun Chong had appeared at a timely moment, saving Zhang Xian of the hassle. Nodding his head, he walked into the residence. "Old master, I heard from the young master that you're coming as well. I thought that it will take a while longer before you arrive here." Sun Chong spoke agitatedly as the duo walked along the corridor of the residence. Bai Chan's ability to accomplish tasks was indeed splendid. This residence was several times larger than the one Zhang Xian rented at Tianxian Kingdom. "Teacher." Soon, he arrived at the main hall. After receiving news of Yang Xian's arrival, Lu Ling and the others also hurried over. At this moment, Bai Chan had an anxious look on his face. The person before him was the teacher of Pavilion Master Jiang and Zhang Shi. No matter how brazen he might be, he didn't dare to act out of place before him. Nodding his head, Zhang Xian surveyed the surroundings before frowning. "Where are the students of Xian Lad?" Bai Chan, Lu Ling, Lu Sun, and Huang Yu were all here. Why were all of his students missing instead? He was currently assuming the identity of Yang Xian, the teacher of their teacher. In other words, their grand teacher. How could they not greet their grand teacher? They were being too impertinent. Lu Ling and the others were just about to speak when flurried footsteps sounded beyond the hall. "Lu Shi, bad news. Zhao Ye has been injured by someone. Please save her." After which, Zheng Yang and the others walked in while supporting Zhao Ye. Chapter 336, Medicinal Herbs Obtained. Zhao Ye's injury was far more severe than they expected. If not for her resilient physical constitution, she might not have even survived the journey back. Lu Ling didn't expect someone to end up so severely injured on a trip to the academy. Shocked, he hurriedly went up to them. "What happened?" "She was injured by a vile woman. Lu Shi, please save her," Zheng Yang said. After taking a look, Lu Ling heaved a sigh of relief. Her Zongshi is in an erratic state, having suffered violent tremors. It isn't a serious problem, she should recover after half a month of recuperation. Half a month? This won't do. She has to duel with that woman once more. 3 days later. Taken aback, Zheng Yang was about to plead with Lu Shi to do something about the matter when the latter waved his hands and clasped his fist toward Yang Shi. "This is your grand teacher, Yang Shi. Hurry up and greet him." "Grand teacher? Yang Shi?" Only at this moment did Zheng Yang and the others notice the middle-aged man who was sitting at the center of the room. Yang Shi was a man who had produced innumerable miracles in Tianxian Kingdom. But more important than that, their teacher was his direct disciple. They had heard of the other party's legends, but they never had the chance to meet him. Upon hearing Lu Shi's words, they trembled in shock, hurriedly kneeled on the floor, and bowed deeply. Grand Student Zhao pays respect to Grand Teacher. Zhang Xian nodded his head. Then, with a frown, he turned to Zhao and said, "What's wrong?" He didn't expect that someone would actually dare to beat up Zhao when he had barely left for just a single day. Who in the world had such guts so as to lay their hands on his student? Reporting to Grand Teacher, my injuries are a result of a loss to another in a fair duel. It's only due to my lacking cultivation that such a situation arose. Zhao explained. A fair duel? Zhang Xian frowned. If she lost in a fair duel, it could only mean to say that she was lacking as compared to the other party. Even as her teacher, it wasn't appropriate for him to stand up for her such a situation. Come over. Zhang Xian beckoned. Yes. Zhao walked forward. Placing his finger on the other party's pulse, he sent a surge of pure Zongshi through the latter's body via her meridians. Pilipila. Under the nourishment of the heavens path Zongshi, Zhaoya's erratic Zongshi gradually calmed down, and her wounds healed at a speed visible to the eye. Thank you Grand Teacher for treating me. Feeling strength returning to her body, Zhaoya's eyes gleamed in excitement. Their Grand Teacher was indeed as incredible as the rumors put him out to be. With such a casual action, not only did the other party manage to heal her injuries, he seemed to have triggered her cultivation as well. At the current moment, Zhao suddenly felt that an urge to achieve a breakthrough. Incredible. Upon seeing this sight, Lu Ling's admiration toward Yang Shi soared once more. He could tell that Zhaoya's injury was a result of her forcefully tapping into her strength, overexerting herself, thus resulting in a backlash. Her internal organs had been jolted, and her Zongshi had been dissipated forcefully. It wasn't really a huge matter, but it would take at least half a month for her to recover fully. Yet, Yang Shi managed to heal her completely just by placing a finger on her pulse for a few breaths. His means were truly unfathomable. If not for witnessing the sight personally, he would have never thought of this to be possible. What do you mean by dueling with someone else 3 days later? After waving his hands to show that it wasn't a huge matter, Zhang Xian suddenly recalled Jing Yang's words and frowned. What was with these little fellows? Why were they always pitting themselves against others, arranging duels even? Reporting to Grand Teacher, we were outside strolling when we heard a woman publicly sullying the reputation of our teacher. Unable to tolerate it, Zhao stepped forth and challenged her to a duel to uphold our teacher's honor. Who could have known that the other party wasn't weak, and Zhao was eventually beaten into such a state? Before Zhao could reply, Yuan Tao had already opened his mouth. Upon hearing his words, the crowd was taken aback. Most master teachers detested seeing their own students causing trouble. Picking a fight with another was already a folly in itself. Yet, they were still unwilling to admit their mistakes and even complained so brazenly. Zhang Shi might still be willing to overlook it, but to utter such words before a master teacher whose rank was likely to have exceeded 3-star. There was no doubt that the other party would be displeased. In the worst-case scenario, Zhang Shi might even suffer a severe reprimand from the latter. Knowing this, everyone rolled their eyes at Yuan Tao. They were all nervous that Yang Shi would get angry. Sullying the reputation of your teacher. Yang Shi's eyebrows shot up. Not bad, a student should indeed uphold the honor of his teacher. You all did well. Did well? They thought that they would have to suffer a severe lashing, but Yang Shi ended up praising them instead. Everyone was stunned, and even Lu Shi couldn't help but stagger. Did this mean that he was encouraging them to fight with others? The ideology that this teacher of his had was way too extreme, wasn't it? However, it is shameful to get beaten up when you were the one who challenged the other party to a duel. Zhang Xian harumphed. Actually Zhao didn't lose out to her in terms of cultivation. It was just that the other party's battle techniques were too strong. Zheng Yang hesitated for a moment before speaking. In truth, the other party won only due to her superior battle techniques. Tianwu Kingdom was a Tier 1 kingdom whereas Tianxian Kingdom was an unranked kingdom. Given their different ranks, there was a world of difference in the battle techniques available in the two kingdoms as well. It was already an incredible feat for Zhao Ye to withstand the other party's moves for so long. Battle techniques? Only at this moment did Zhang Xian recall that he had never imparted Zhao Ye any battle technique before. He had imparted Wang Ying the Heaven's Path leg art and Heaven's Path movement art, Zheng Yang the Heaven's Path spear art, and Lu Yang the Heaven's Path fist art. After awakening the unique constitutions of Yuan Tao and Zhao Ye, he didn't impart them any battle technique. It was no wonder why they would suffer a huge disadvantage when battling others. Since your teacher is currently taking the 2-star Master Teacher examination, I will impart you a battle technique on his behalf. Are you willing to learn it? Thus, Zhang Xian turned to the lady before him and asked. I am willing. Hearing that Grand Teacher was going to impart her a battle technique personally, Zhao Ye hurriedly clasped her fist and bowed. What a joke. This was the teacher of her teacher. The battle technique he was going to impart her was definitely incredibly profound. Since you've been using a sword since young, I'll impart you a sword art. After contemplating for a moment, Zhang Xian said. However, my sword art is sharp. You've just gotten injured, so it's not suitable for you to cultivate for the time being. You should just rest for today. I'll impart the sword art to you tomorrow. Even though Zhao Ye had learned some kicking and punching battle techniques, those weren't her expertise. Her true specialty lies in swordsmanship instead, which she had been learning from young. Thus, she would be most suited to learn a sword art. Yes. Zhao Ye nodded. She had just gotten injured, and she was indeed not in a good condition to be learning a formidable sword art at the moment. Only when in her top condition would she be able to learn better and bring out greater might from the sword art. Alright, you should rest for now. Son Chong, send someone to the Master Teacher Pavilion to get Jiang Shu over. Tell him that I have something I need him for. After dealing with Zhao Ye's matter, Zhang Xian waved his hands and dismissed them. He had browsed through many books in the Master Teacher Pavilion, and there were a substantial number of them on swordsmanship. However, those techniques were rather profound, and it might be difficult for Zhao Ye to master them if he were to impart them straight. Thus, Zhang Xian decided to learn them for himself and test their might before modifying it to suit her. If he didn't attempt to comprehend every aspect of the sword art before imparting them to Zhao Ye, it might affect her fundamentals, thus causing potential problems in the future. Sun Chong moved swiftly, and in less than an hour, Pavilion Master Jiang was already before him. Looking at Yang Shi, who was seated at the main seat in the hall, he excitedly kneeled down and bowed. Jiang Shu pays respect to teacher. Not only did the person before him help him to tame a powerful savage beast, the other party even imparted him a cultivation technique to clear away the trauma in his body. As such, he was filled with gratitude for the other party. There are 2 medicinal herbs that I need, gold leaf spark twig and 9 worms flower. Do you have them? Cutting straight to the point, Zhang Xian asked impassively. Gold leaf spark twig and 9 worms flower. I do happen to have them. With a flick of his wrist, 2 medicinal herbs appeared on Jiang Shu's palm. These were the medicinal herbs that Zhang Xian was looking for. Taking the medicinal herbs, Zhang Xian waved his hands. I won't take advantage of you. How much do these 2 medicinal herbs cost? I'll have Sun Chong pass you the money later on. I am heavily indebted to teacher. It's just 2 medicinal herbs, please treat it as a filial gesture of mine, Jiang Shu hurriedly said. Without Yang Shi's cultivation technique, it was just a matter of time before his trauma acted up. His life would have been constantly at risk. But now, not only did he manage to tame a powerful savage beast, he even managed to clear up his trauma. For this, he would be willing to even run through a mountain of flames for the other party. In comparison to that, 2 medicinal herbs were truly nothing. It was this kind of earnest gratitude that induced the formation of a golden page in the Library of Heaven's Path. Fate brought us together, that is the only reason why I helped you. I won't take advantage of you. Zhang Xian frowned. With an imposing tone, he said, I will pay you however much the cost. Seeing his teacher insist on the payment, Jiang Shu was impressed. Did you see that? This is the true magnanimity of a master teacher. It was impossible for one to not respect him. Yes. Nodding his head, Jiang Shu rummaged through his memory before replying, I got these 2 medicinal herbs from the great herb king back then. As both of their maturity exceeds 100 years, they are worth a total of 20 million gold coins. 20 million cough cough. Zhang Xian had intended to pass the money to the other party grandly, but upon hearing those words, he nearly coughed blood and fainted. 20 million gold coin. The heck? Even if he were to sell himself, he wouldn't be able to earn this sum of money. He thought that it would just be a few million gold coins, that was why he offered to pay for it so generously. Never in his dreams did he expect these 2 medicinal herbs to be even more expensive than all of the other herbs added up together. What the hell could these herbs be to cost so much money? All he wanted to do was to accept a student, raise his strength, and earn his trust. To think that just doing so would result in his bankruptcy. This was way too darned. Money is just material possession. As a master teacher, thinking about money all day long will affect your mental resilience. With a reddened face, Zhang Xian waved his hands grandly. Jiang Shu was baffled. I said that there was no need to pay, but you insisted on it. So why are you saying that thinking about money will affect one's mental resilience now? Seeing the bizarre expression on the other party's face, Zhang Xian coughed awkwardly. Waving his hands casually, he said, you should condition yourself well for the next few days. I'll find some time to help you achieve a breakthrough in your cultivation. Treat it as the payment for these 2 medicinal herbs. He had promised the other party to pay him, only to realize that he had insufficient money. As the unfathomable expert Yang Shi, he couldn't afford to lose his reputation over such a minor matter. Thus, he could only promise the other party some other benefits. Help me achieve a breakthrough. Just as Jiang Shu was curious as to why his teacher would have such a sudden change in attitude, he heard those words and his excitement then instantaneously erased all doubts that were on his mind. He hurriedly kneeled to the floor and kowtowed. Thank you, teacher. He had been stuck in Zongshi realm pinnacle for many years. If he could achieve a breakthrough and reach Half-Shizuan, his lifespan and strength would be increased significantly. You can leave now. Having collected all of the medicinal herbs, Zhang Xian was anxious to return to the academy. Thus, he bided everyone farewell. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. I'll come by once more tomorrow. Saying so, Zhang Xian stepped out of the residence. After leaving the residence, he walked into an isolated alley. Looking around to ensure that there was no one around, he reverted back to the appearance of Lu Laoshi and headed straight back to Tianwu Academy. The residence that Bai Chan acquired was right between the Master Teacher Pavilion and Tianwu Academy. Thus, it didn't take him too long to return back to his classroom. However, before he could enter the classroom, Meng Tao rushed up to him and said in a fluster, Teacher, you're back. Please save Senior. She's injured. Mu Xueqing is injured. Zhang Xian was taken aback. More importantly, it was impossible to become adept at a battle technique without several years of effort. She was going to fight against that person 3 days later. If she were to ask this of anyone else, she would never make it in time. Thus, she could only pin her hopes on Lu Laoshi, who had created miracle after miracle. Battle technique? Zhang Xian turned to look at her doubtfully. What do you want to learn? I specialize in saber, so if possible, I hope that teacher can impart me a saber art, Mu Xueqing said. Saber art? Zhang Xian was surprised. Ladies tended to prefer swords due to their lightness and elegance, which complemented their disposition. Yet, this lass favored sabers instead. This was something that was beyond Zhang Xian's expectations. Alright, I'll think about a suitable saber art and impart one to you tomorrow. You should leave for now. Zongshi nodded. All right. Mu Xueqing bowed in gratitude before leaving with Meng Tao and the others. Senior, why didn't you allow me to say it? After leaving the classroom, Meng Tao couldn't hold himself back and immediately questioned. She obviously got injured while trying to uphold Lu Laoshir's honor, so why did she stop him from saying it? Say. What do you intend to say? That I got injured while sparring with Zhongshi's student? If I were to say so, Lu Laoshir would most probably drag me to the other party to apologize. Mu Xueqing harumphed. This, Meng Tao froze. The standing and influence of a master teacher mustn't be underestimated. A genius like Zhongshi wasn't someone that an ordinary teacher like Lu Laoshir could stand up against. If Lu Laoshir were to find out that his students had conflicts with other party, it was highly possible that he might drag Senior there to apologize. It's not a big deal for me to lower my head and apologize, but I earnestly feel that Lu Laoshir isn't inferior to Zhongshi in any way. In fact, I think he is even more capable than the latter. How can there be such a huge difference between their reputations? I must defeat that fellow and bring honor to Lu Laoshir's name. Determination gleamed in Mu Xueqing's eyes. How could Lu Laoshir, despite his capability, remain as an unknown figure in the capital? Clearly, it was due to the lack of a suitable platform for him to display his prowess. The duel with Zhongshi's student was an excellent platform to prove Lu Laoshir's ability. As long as she wins against the other party, Lu Laoshir's name would be known throughout the entire capital instantly. Everyone would know that even though Lu Laoshir wasn't a master teacher, his capability wasn't inferior to one. I agree with you. Meng Tao nodded his head in agreement. Indeed. If Senior were to report this matter to Lu Laoshir, it would be impossible to continue on with the duel. If so, how could she bring honor to Lu Laoshir's name? How could she make everyone understand that he is an incredible teacher? Of course, he also knew that she was only trying to justify her actions. That wasn't her primary aim at all. Mu Xueqing was a mini-tyrant in the academy, having chased away several teachers. Someone had crossed her path and even wounded her. If she didn't get her revenge and make the other party apologize to her, she wouldn't be able to let this matter rest. Alright, don't let Lu Laoshir know about this matter. I'll teach whoever who dares to babble to him a lesson. Mu Xueqing glared at her juniors menacingly. Yes. Everyone hurriedly nodded their heads. We won't say anything, but what if Lu Chong? Meng Tao suddenly thought of something and pointed toward the classroom. Lu Chong was currently alone with Lu Laoshir in the classroom. Even if they were to seal their mouth, it would be for naught if Lu Chong revealed the matter. Lu Chong. That fellow is reluctant to even open his mouth. Do you think it is possible for him to babble to Lu Laoshir? Mu Xueqing rolled her eyes. That's true, Meng Tao scratched his head awkwardly. In the 2 years that they had been with Lu Chong, the latter had spoken less than 3 sentences. How could he possibly start gossiping about this matter? And just like they had guessed, Lu Chong didn't say anything. At this moment, he was staring cautiously at Lu Laoshir. The request that Lu Laoshir raised had put him in a difficult position. Take off your clothes, his teacher's voice sounded. Take off my clothes, scratching his head in embarrassment, Lu Chong was at a loss. The cultivation of poison body is extremely difficult. For that, the physical body enhancement technique that I taught you has to reach major accomplishment at minimum. You are still lacking in mastery, and I'll have to give you a boost. Zhang Xian said. Cultivating the poison body was an extremely difficult and dangerous matter. Otherwise, countless poison masters wouldn't have died in the midst of doing so. Yes. Upon hearing that his teacher was only getting him to strip for cultivation purposes, Lu Chong heaved a sigh of relief. If Zhang Xian were to know what the other party was thinking, he would definitely die of rage. The students nowadays, do they all mature that early? What in the world is going through their minds soon? Lu Chong took off his clothes and lay horizontally on a bench in the classroom. Frowning slightly, Zhang Xian flicked his wrist and a few silver needles appeared on his palm. With a slight movement, the silver needles immediately pierced into Lu Chang's acupoints. The pure heaven's path Shinqi started flowing through his body. Lu Chang's talent was nothing short of ordinary. Given his current cultivation speed, it would take at least 2 days or so before he could reach major accomplishment for the simplified version of Heaven's Path Golden Body. After reinforcing his cultivation, around 4 days would have already passed. That's not right, there are still some flaws in the sword art. It isn't complete yet. The battle techniques in the Master Teacher Pavilion were at a higher level than those in Tianxian Kingdom. Even the weakest of them was at least of mortal pinnacle, and many of them were at phantom low tier. The more profound a battle technique was, the rarer and more valuable it was. There were only several dozen of sword art manuals in the entire library. With this quantity, it was impossible to even form a single perfect move after compiling all of the correct portions together, less to say, a Heaven's Path battle technique. Forcefully cultivating this kind of incomplete sword art might cause one's cultivation to go berserk. Looking at the incomplete sword art manual, Zhang Xian felt dismayed. He thought that he would be able to form Heaven's Path sword art with just the sword art manuals in the Master Teacher Pavilion. From the looks of it, he was underestimating the matter. It was fortunate that he didn't impart this sword art to Xiaoya. If he did, the latter might have probably died from cultivating this technique before she could dueling with her opponent. Forget it, I should take a look at saber art manuals first. Holding back his dismay, he turned his attention to the saber art manuals. Soon, the frustration on his face deepened. Just like for sword art, there were 2 little saber art manuals here as well. It was impossible for a complete move to be formed with this meager quantity. Other people required profound secret manuals for their battle technique, but Zhang Xian was different. All he needed was quantity. As for quality, it was of negligible difference. As the greatest occupation in the world, master teachers didn't think highly of ordinary battle techniques. As such, they didn't bother collecting them. While this wasn't anything much to other master teachers, to Zhang Xian, this was extremely bad news. Where in the world can I find fundamental manuals on saber art and sword art? After organizing his thoughts, Zhang Xian scratched his head in frustration. Right. How could I forgot that I am at Tianwu Academy? There must be quite a few fundamental saber art and sword art manuals here. Zhang Xian's eyes suddenly lit up. It might be difficult to find battle technique secret manuals elsewhere, but this wasn't an issue for Tianwu Academy. As a school for cultivators, there must be plenty of such items on the campus. Thus, Zhang Xian grabbed a nearby student, asked for the location of the teacher's library, and started walking over with widened strides. Soon, he arrived in a huge vault filled with books. After flashing his identity token, he walked into the room. As expected of the location where the secret manuals of the academy were stored. Even though it wasn't as large as the Master Teacher Pavilion's library, it was still of formidable scale. Cultivation technique and battle technique manuals of all kinds filled the shelves, and in just a single glance, it was clear that the number of books definitely numbered beyond 1 million. There were many books on the other occupations in the Master Teacher Pavilion, but over here, the books were mostly cultivation technique and battle technique manuals. The books on the other occupations numbered in the minority. Cultivation techniques beneath Zongshi realm were useless to Zhang Xian. Thus, he went straight for the sword art manuals. Soon, he found the shelves where the sword art manuals were held. There were more than several thousand books on those shelves. He quickly collected them into the Library of Heaven's Path. Compile. This time, the sword art that was compiled was in perfect condition, thus safe for cultivation. Instead of testing it out immediately, Zhang Xian went to the section on saber art and collected the respective books into the Library of Heaven's Path as well. HM. Zongshi Realm Cultivation Technique. Walking along the shelves, Zhang Xian collected a few other battle technique manuals when he suddenly saw the books on a row of shelves and his eyes lit up. To think that there would be Zongshi realm cultivation technique manuals here. In Hengtian Academy, Zongshi realm's secret manuals were incomparably valuable. As such, they were placed in an isolated vault and only elders were qualified to browse through them. Zhang Xian didn't expect Zongshi realm cultivation technique manuals to be accessible to all teachers in Tianwu Academy. Casually picking up a book, Zhang Xian browsed through it. Soon, a bitter smile spread across his face. He thought that Tianwu Academy was truly practicing equality in education, granting both elders and ordinary teacher access to the same resources. But after flipping through a book, he realized that it was just wishful thinking on his part, even though those were indeed Zongshi realm cultivation technique manuals. No doubt about that, those were the most ordinary and simplest cultivation technique. In terms of quality, they were around mortal low tier. Using these cultivation techniques, even if one was incredibly talented, it would take at least a decade or so before one would be able to advance a single realm. It seemed like the truly incredible cultivation techniques were still kept in an isolated vault. Those that were available here were the useless ones. It was a waste to throw it away, but no one cultivated them anyway. Even so, this was a huge treasure trove to Zhang Xian. Sliding his finger across those manuals, he swiftly collected them all in his mind. Correct. He had collected quite a few Zongshi realm cultivation technique manuals back when he was at Red Lotus City. Adding all of these into the mix as well, the Library of Heaven's Path immediately formed the Zongshi realm Heaven's Path Divine Art. I should go out first before starting to cultivate. Holding back his urge to cultivate on the spot, he strolled around the library and collected some other useful-looking books before leaving. Returning back to the classroom, Zhang Xian went over to examine Lu Chang's condition, and upon seeing that the latter was still trying his best to withstand the poison, he nodded his head in approval. After which, he walked into the small classroom and sat down cross-legged. Flipping open the Zongshi realm Heaven's Path Divine Art, he closed his eyes and started cultivating. Tzzzzzzzzzzzz. Along with the flow of his Zongshi, spiritual energy in the air began to gush into his body, flowing through his acupoints and meridians. After cultivating for a moment, Zhang Xian abruptly opened his eyes. His cultivation didn't feel as smooth as before. In the past, achieving breakthroughs felt as easy as simply drinking a cup of water. But now, he felt starved instead. It was as if he was trying his best to gobble down whatever that was before him, but whatever that was before him was simply insufficient to satiate his appetite. Its spiritual energy, after pondering for a moment, Zhang Xian came to a conclusion. The first 7 realms of a fighter, Jushi, Dantian, Jinqi, Pigu, Dingli, Pishue, Tongxian, the cultivation of these realms didn't require much spiritual energy. For example, in Pishue realm, one only had to open up one's acupoints to raise one's strength. In Tongxian realm, one only had to connect all of one's meridians together. In Dingli realm, one only had to temper one's physical body. However, it was different once one reached Zongshi realm. The accumulation of spiritual energy and storage of Zongshi became the priority instead. Every slightest increase in one's cultivation realm required a vast supply of spiritual energy. Using an analogy, a Zongshi realm cultivator's dantian was like a pond, whereas the spiritual energy in the air was like a stream flowing into the pond. If one wanted to fill the pond, naturally, the greater the flow, the better it was. Cultivating a high-tier cultivation technique would cause this stream to expand. With Heaven's Path Divine Art, Zhang Xian's stream was no different from a ridiculously wide river. Naturally, the volume of water that could flow through it at any given moment was much greater than a small stream, but of course, that was only if there was sufficient water being supplied to the river in the first place. Without sufficient water, no matter how vast the river was, the rate at which it filled the pond wouldn't be much faster than a stream. That was to say, while there was no problem with the Heaven's Path divine art, due to the lacking spiritual energy in the environment, Zhang Xian would be unable to leverage the advantages of his cultivation technique to the maximum extent. In other words, Zhang Xian was no longer able to raise his cultivation by an entire realm in just 2 hours like he did in the past. Given how thin the spiritual energy in the air is, it will take at least 3 to 5 months before I reach Zongshi realm pinnacle. Zhang Xian thought in dismay. The prowess of Heaven's Path divine art was incredible, but it had no way of making up for the lacking spiritual energy in the air. Given the current rate of absorption, it would take at least 3 to 5 months before he reached the peak of Zongshi realm. Of course, if others were to know of his thoughts, they would definitely raise their pitchforks and light their torches. Reaching Zongshi realm pinnacle within 3 to 5 months is already an incredible feat, you know? To be unsatisfied with such speed, forget it. I should go to the Apothecary Guild tomorrow to see if I can find any pills harnessing spiritual energy. With the help of such pills, I should be able to advance my cultivation realm faster, knowing that it would be terribly inefficient to cultivate normally. Zhang Xian chose to put the matter aside for now. The lack of spiritual energy in the environment was a huge problem to Zhang Xian, but this problem could be alleviated by consuming pills. The Apothecary Guild had many pills that harnessed concentrated spiritual energy within them. Thus, Zhang Xian turned his attention away from the Zongshi realm cultivation technique to the sword art manuals and saber art manuals in the Library of Heaven's Path. 4 hours later. Who? Casually grabbing a sword from the weapon rack in the classroom, Zhang Xian drove his Zongshi according to the formula in his head and flicked the sword in his hand lightly. SSS Law. The Zongshi Zhang Xian imbued into the sword formed a blinding radiance on the tip of the sword. And with a light slash, a sword chi flew for more than a dozen meters before coming to a stop. A narrow but deep cut appeared on the hard ground. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. He immediately picked up a saber and attempted a light swing as well. Just like with the sword, an imposing white emanation flew forth the saber, leaving behind a deep cut on the ground. As expected of a battle technique compiled from high-tier battle techniques. These two techniques are much stronger than the Heaven's Path fist art and Heaven's Path spear art. Zhang Xian was satisfied with the force of the sword chi and saber chi. After reinforcing his understanding of the techniques, Zhang Xian finally heaved a sigh of relief and a slight smile crept onto his face. After I simplify these techniques and impart them onto Xiaoye and Mu Xueqing, they would surely be able to emerge victorious regardless of who their opponents are. He had no idea who Xiaoye's opponent was, but he knew the primary reason behind Xiaoye's loss was due to her disadvantage in terms of battle techniques. Once she learns this sword art, no matter how powerful her opponent may be, it would be impossible for the other party to withstand her attacks. Zhang Xian was certain that there was no battle technique in Tianwu Kingdom that could surpass those created through the Library of Heaven's Path. As for Mu Xueqing, even though she didn't say a thing, it couldn't be any clearer to Zhang Xian that her injury originated from a brawl. After imparting her this saber art, she should be able to protect herself from any opponent. Mu Xueqing returned to her residence. Recalling what that had happened today, she couldn't help but doubt that everything was just a dream. Even though she had witnessed Lu Laoshir's capability with her own eyes, she still found it way too unbelievable. With just a few casual pointers from him, all of the students in the class achieved a breakthrough in their cultivation, and the problem of the pill poison that had accumulated in her body was resolved. On top of that, he even declared that he would grant Lu Chong the strength rivaling that of a Tongxian realm cultivator within 10 days. Even a master teacher wouldn't be able to rival those feats. Walking into the living room, she stretched her back and prepared to return back to her room to rest. But just then, her father suddenly rushed into the living room with an agitated look on his face. "Qing'er, you're back. I've good news for you." "What's wrong, father?" Her father, Apothecary Mu, had always maintained his composure regardless of the situation. What in the world could have happened for him to get so agitated? "There's a cure for you." Apothecary Mu's eyes were gleaming with excitement. A cure. Mu Xueqing was perplexed. A cure? It wasn't like she was terminally ill. What did "a cure for you" mean? You have been consuming pills since young to augment the speed of your cultivation. Even though you managed to improve swiftly, due to your physical constitution and the nature of your cultivation technique, a significant amount of pill poison has accumulated in your body, thus making it extremely difficult for you to advance to higher realms. I only managed to notice this problem last year, and by then, it was already too late. Apothecary Mu looked at her daughter apologetically. In order to solve your trauma, I've visited the Physician Guild and consulted them on your problem. However, none of them had a feasible solution for your problem. Even guild leader Mu Hong is helpless before this matter, and he even inscribed the question on the wall of dilemma. I thought that it would be nigh impossible to find a cure for your problem, but today, an incredible physician appeared, and he solved all of the questions on the wall of dilemma with perfect treatment methods. In other words, there's a cure for your pill poison. Apothecary Mu's eyes were glowing. He had always felt guilty to his daughter over the issue of the pill poison, and thus, he had gone to great extents to find a cure to his daughter's affliction. Upon realizing that the new guild leader of the Physician Guild could solve the problem easily, he could no longer hold back his agitation. Pill poison. Mu Xueqing blinked. She was just about to say that she had been cured of her pill poison when her father continued speaking. You don't know how talented this new guild leader is. He solved 19 questions on the wall of dilemma consecutively, achieving a perfect grade for each of them. In the end, he even came up with an answer that even 4-star physicians were incapable of evaluating. Apothecary Mu praised in amazement. Even though he had heard the news from a reliable source, he still found it hard to believe. If not for his friend in the Physician Guild swearing on the matter, he would have surely thought the other party was just pulling his leg. Ah, right. I heard that the new guild leader is a teacher in your academy. Help me look into it tomorrow so that I can make some preparations. I'll pay him a visit and beseech him for the treatment method to cure you of your affliction. Apothecary Mu turned to his daughter and said. There's such a formidable teacher in our academy? What's his name? Mu Xueqing asked doubtfully. She had heard of the Physician Guild's wall of dilemma as well. To be able to solve 19 questions with a perfect grade, that person was indeed an incredible genius. His feat was in no way inferior to that of master teacher Zongshi. But Mu Xueqing knew all of the teachers in the academy, and she was certain that none of them were capable of such a feat after all. How could a person possessing such formidable capability possibly remain unknown? If I recall correctly, Apothecary Mu pondered for a moment. His surname seems to be Lu. Gedeng. Mu Xueqing's heart skipped a beat. A figure suddenly appeared in her mind, and her face flushed in agitation. Staring intently at her father, she asked, "It can't be that his name is Lu Cheng?" This was the name Lu Laoshi introduced himself with when he entered the classroom. That's right, his name is Lu Cheng. He seems to be a new teacher in Tianwu Academy. Recalling the contents of his conversation with his friend, Apothecary Mu nodded. Lu Cheng. Mu Xueqing's widened into large circles, and at that moment, she looked as though she had seen a ghost. Was her teacher a physician too? Not to mention, he actually solved 19 questions on the wall of dilemma and became the new guild leader of the Physician Guild. Even though she had already guessed the answer before her father said anything, she was still astonished when she heard the confirmation. You know this teacher? Great. I'll pay him a visit tomorrow and beseech him to solve your pill poison. Oblivious to his daughter's shock, Apothecary Mu continued speaking excitedly. There's no need to pay him a visit, he has already cured my pill poison affliction. It took a while before Mu Xueqing managed to digest this news. Smiling bitterly, she said. He has already cured you. Surprised, Apothecary Mu swiftly turned to look at his daughter. Yes, Mu Xueqing nodded. Why would he help you? The situation was much too sudden for Apothecary Mu to accept. Given Lu Laoshe's standing, there shouldn't be any reason for him to solve his daughter's affliction for free. That's because, hearing her father's doubt, Mu Xueqing tilted her face upward and a proud expression appeared on her face. He is my teacher. Your teacher. Apothecary Mu was stunned. The same situation was also occurring with Meng Tao and the other students of Lu Laoshe. That very night left innumerable people astonished. Waking up from his sleep, Zhang Xian felt revitalized. He had spent the entire night modifying the Heaven's Path sword art and Heaven's Path saber art for Zhao Ye and Mu Xueqing's usage. The battle techniques created through the Library of Heaven's Path were formidable, but without Heaven's Path Zhenqi to sustain one, not only would one be unable to bring out the full might of the technique, one might even sustain severe injuries from it. Just like a baby swinging a hammer, without sufficient strength to wield it, a formidable tool would just hurt oneself. The two ladies would be able to better bring out the might of the battle techniques after Zhang Xian made some modifications to the respective techniques according to their needs. After walking out from the small room, Zhang Xian saw Lu Chong panting heavily on the bench. The latter had managed to survive the first round of torture in cultivating the poison body. Teacher. Upon seeing Lu Laoshe, Lu Chong hurriedly clasped his fist. From the very start, Zhang Xian had expected that Lu Chong would be able to tide through the pain. Thus, he wasn't too surprised by the matter. Nodding his head, he smiled. How do you feel? Lu Chong hesitated for a moment before replying, I don't feel anything different from before. I am still at Pishue realm primary stage. Why didn't my cultivation rise? As soon as the poison started to fade, he immediately took an internal look at his condition. Just like how he was yesterday night, he was still at Pishue realm primary stage. There wasn't any advancement in his cultivation at all. If not out of trust for Lu Laoshe, he would have thought that the pain he suffered yesterday night was for naught. Upon recalling the pain he felt then, he couldn't help but shudder. It was as if he was plunged into the deepest abyss of hell, subjected to the worst tortures that could exist in this world. Many a time he felt that it would be better for him to just let go of everything and give up. If not for the grudge in his heart fueling his determination, he would have surely caved in. There's a strength measuring rock pillar there. You should try hitting it. Zhang Xian smiled lightly. Yes. Even though Lu Chong was perplexed by the instructions, he still nodded his head and walked over to the rock pillar. Clenching his fist, he struck it with all of his might. Wang! The rock pillar trembled, and a line of digits slowly floated into appearance. 44 ding. Pishue realm pinnacle H. How is this possible? Upon seeing the numbers on the pillar, Lu Chong's body trembled and his eyes widened in shock. He could clearly sense that his cultivation didn't rise at all. How did he manage to achieve a might of 44 ding? This was too scary. A normal Pishue realm cultivator's strength would only increase by 1 ding for every acupoint opened. Going by that calculation, 44 ding was equivalent to having 40 acupoints opened. However, Lu Chong had only cleared 1 acupoint to date. So, how in the world could he possibly possess such tremendous strength? The strength originates from your physical body. Zhang Xian nodded his head as he explained. He was rather satisfied with the outcome. What the poison body augmented was the might of one's physical body, not one's Zhenqi cultivation. Upon reaching a certain level of strength for one's physical body, one could gain the strength to rival Zhenqi cultivators. In fact, some of the formidable poison masters were even able to tear Zongshi realm cultivators apart without using their Zhenqi at all. By tempering his physical body through lethal poison, in the course of a single night, Lu Chong's strength rose from 5 ding to 44 ding. Seeing the number on the stone pillar, Lu Chong's eyes reddened. Back then, when Lu Laoshe said that he would grant him the strength to exact vengeance within 10 days, he still bore some doubts to the other party's words. But now, not even the slightest trace of doubt lingered in his mind. In just a single day, his fighting prowess rose from the level of a Dingli realm primary stage cultivator to a Pishue realm pinnacle cultivator. This rate of growth was completely unheard of. Even though Lu Chong was experiencing it firsthand, he couldn't help but doubt if it was all just a dream. Thank you, teacher. All that was left in his mind at this moment was awe and gratitude for the young Lu Laoshe. So, can you tell me about your matter now? Zhang Xian asked. Lu Chong clenched his fists tightly. Remember, you are Lu Cheng's student, my student. Even if your enemy is the Emperor of Tianwu Kingdom, as long as he is at fault, placing his hands behind his back, Zhang Xian exuded an aura of indubitable confidence. I'll blast a hole through him for you. Teacher, having lost his family, Lu Chong had to learn to be independent swiftly. In the past 2 years, he trusted no one and relied on no one. He chose to shoulder all of his burden alone. But despite his incredible mental fortitude, in the end, he was just a young child. In an instant, all of Lu Chong's pent-up emotions suddenly came bursting forth, and tears started streaming down his face. If it was anyone else who said such words to him, he would have surely laughed it off, thinking that the other party was just bragging. But for some reason, he couldn't help but feel inclined to trust the words of this Lu Laoshe. He had lost all of his pillars of support with his death of his parents. He didn't expect to find the feeling of wanting to rely on someone on Lu Laoshe. Even though the teacher before him was young, he felt like an indomitable mountain that pulled his floating heart back to the ground, allowing to him to find calmness. For once in a very long time, he felt that he wasn't alone. Go on, speak. Zhang Xian looked at Lu Chong. Yes, thus, Lu Chong began talking about his history. It wasn't too different from the cliché plots one would see in soap opera. The Lu clan, which Lu Chong was born in, wasn't exactly a prestigious clan in Tianwu Royal City, but still, it was a sizable one. Lu Chong's talent had been average since young. On the other hand, his elder sister was the star of the clan, becoming an apprentice formation master at just 17-year-old. Back then, she was the talk of the town. However, that was also the origin of the disaster. Talented and beautiful, she caught the eye of a certain scion. Love eventually grew into hate, and the story ended in a tragedy. Eventually, our entire family of 137 people was all killed in the span of a night. Back then, I happened to be out hunting and coincidentally avoided the calamity. Recalling the matter, the resentment he sealed in his heart burst forth, and his entire body trembled in agitation. Your clan used to be in Tianwu Royal City? Zhang Xian asked. If his clan wasn't located in Tianwu Royal City, there would be no need for him to act so cautiously here, going to the extent of even playing mute. Yes. Lu Chong nodded. Given my weak cultivation, I knew that I would never be able to escape from the other party's pursuers. Thus, I decided to join Tianwu Academy instead and cooped myself within its compounds. I think that it is likely that the other party didn't think that I would pose much of a threat, that I was able to survive until now. The most dangerous place is always the safest place. Perhaps the other party didn't expect you to hide in the prestigious Tianwu Academy. However, given that a clan of 137 people was killed, there should have been a huge uproar in the city. Didn't the Master Teacher Pavilion and Tianwu Kingdom attempt to investigate the matter and return justice to the Lu clan? Zhang Xian realized that there were some doubtful aspects to the matter. The Master Teacher Pavilion was a powerful organization spread across innumerable nations. Not only was it responsible for grooming master teachers and guiding the populace, it also took on the role of maintaining order in the region. While they typically didn't interfere in fights of minor scale, an entire clan being slaughtered overnight was a huge matter. Given such, the Master Teacher Pavilion should have sent someone to look into the matter. Besides, even if the Master Teacher Pavilion chose not to interfere, how could the royalty of Tianwu Kingdom stay out of the matter as well? How could they allow the murderer to get away scot-free when an entire clan was killed in the capital right beneath their eyes? I am not sure about the details either. After everyone else died, I went undercover. I didn't dare to look into the matter out of fear that the other party would notice my existence. Lu Chong had a savage expression on his face, and deep resentment burned in his eyes. Zhang Xian continued asking a few more questions, but after realizing that Lu Chong didn't know much about the matter as well, he stopped. There's no need to bother all these first, just focus on your training for the time being. Use the method I taught you yesterday to cultivate. As long as you persevere on for 5 more times, you should attain the strength to kill Tongxian realm pinnacle experts easily. You should rest well for now and prepare for the second round tonight. Yes. Lu Chong clasped his fist before returning back to his dormitory. Even though Lu Chong had worded it lightly, Zhang Xian knew that the matter wasn't as easy as it sounded. Given how the royalty of Tianwu Kingdom stood idle when an entire clan was killed, his opponent must either possess immense strength or be of high standing. More importantly, if it was only a matter of love turning into the hate, the other party could have just killed his sister. Was there a need to wipe out the entire clan? There was probably something deeper to it. It seemed like his student was still hiding several matters from him. I shouldn't pressure him if he doesn't wish to say it. I will ask him when he's willing to talk about it. Shaking his head, Zhang Xian decided not to dwell on the matter. Even though he had decided to help the other party, their time together was still too short. It was normal for Lu Chong to not have absolute trust in him. Thus, Zhang Xian wasn't angry. In the book compiled on Lu Chong in the Library of Heaven's Path, it was only reflected that Lu Chong carried a deep grudge against him. It didn't state who his enemy was, and what exactly happened back then. It was just like the case with Xiaoye and Mu Xueqing. He could tell that the duo was injured, as well as how they were injured, but he wasn't able to tell who was the one who did it. Walking out of the classroom, Lu Chong turned around and glanced at the young Lu Laoshi. His eyes reddened, and he tightened his fist. It wasn't that he didn't trust Lu Laoshi, but he didn't dare to tell him the truth. He knew very well the standing and influence his enemy wielded. He didn't want the only person in the world who treated him sincerely to be harmed because of him. Lu Laoshi, I am indebted to you. It seems like I won't be able to repay you. I really hope that you won't be implicated in this matter. After all, you're just an ordinary teacher in the academy. If they were to realize that you have taken me as your student and imparted me with knowledge, they might lay their hands on you. Allow me to settle my grudge myself. Coming to this decision, Lu Chong turned around and left. The sudden surge in his strength had reignited his hope for exacting vengeance. Not long after Lu Chong's departure, the other students arrived. After imparting them some basic knowledge and giving them pointers on their cultivation one by one, Zhang Xian called Mu Xueqing into the small room and imparted her with the Heaven's Path saber art. Initially, when Mu Xueqing heard that there was only one move, she was slightly disappointed. However, after learning it, she realized that it was an exceedingly profound and high-level skill. Agitated, her body couldn't stop shaking. Even though she was unable to tell the tier of this saber art, she knew that it was at a much higher level than the fallen flower fist that her father imparted her. They weren't even comparable to one another. This saber art seemed to harness the fundamental laws of the universe. Profound concepts were concisely expressed through this single move, making one feel as though it was impossible to withstand it. Thank you, Lu Laoshi, for your generous bestowment. After practicing it for 2 hours, Mu Xueqing finally opened up the Zongshi pathway required for the Heaven's Path saber art. Filled with gratitude and reverence for her teacher, she kneeled onto the floor and kowtowed. The other party had solved her pill poison issue and imparted her with such an incredible battle technique it was impossible to express her gratitude through words. I must defeat that lady and bring honor to Lu Laoshi's name. Gritting her silver teeth, she strengthened her resolve. She had no other way to repay her teacher but to bring glory to him, and defeating Master Teacher Zhang Xian's student was the most effective way to do so. Oblivious to the fact that this newly accepted student of his had already made up her mind to give Xiaoya a good thrashing, Zhang Xian instructed for the other students to cultivate properly before leaving the classroom. It wasn't easy for him to create the Zongshi realm Heaven's Path divine art, but due to lack of spiritual energy, he could only cultivate slowly. Now that he had some free time, he decided to head to the Apothecary Guild to find some suitable pills with concentrated spiritual energy. Is that Lu Laoshi really as incredible as they say? Helping others achieve a breakthrough with just a few casual pointers. Not too far away from Zhang Xian's classroom, two young men were discussing. If any other students were here, they would surely recognize the duo to be the two stars of the academy, the champion of the academy's tournament, Zhao Wuxing, and the first runner-up, Lu Changyan. The one who had just spoken was Zhao Wuxing. There must be a reason behind these rumors. It's not like you don't know Mu Xueqing's temper. To be able to make her listen obediently and even fall out with Zhang Shi's students, that Lu Laoshi must possess exceptional means. Lu Changyan replied. After witnessing the brawl between the two ladies, the duo grew interested in the legendary Lu Laoshi. No matter what, we should see for ourselves whether it is real or not. I don't believe that there's any teacher in this academy who can surpass Bai Laoshi in terms of teaching. Even though the Lu Changyan's words were logical, Zhao Wuxing still found it hard to believe the matter. As they lived on the campus, they were unaware of the ruckus that Lu Laoshi had caused in the Physician Guild. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been doubtful of the other party's capability. As for Bai Laoshi, he was the most famous star teacher in the academy. His standing was similar to that of Lu Sun in Hengtian Academy. Why is the carriage of the royal family here? Just as the two of them were discussing the matter, Lu Changyan abruptly pointed to the road. Tracing the other party's finger, Zhao Wuxing was stunned. A golden carriage was slowly heading toward the academy from the streets. The insignia of the royal family was on the exterior of the carriage. 8 horses. This is the carriage that only the core members of the royal family are entitled to ride on. Chapter 341, Spirit Stone. The two geniuses weren't the only ones who were maddened by Zhang Xian's casual and impertinent reaction. Mou's eyebrows were also twitching and she nearly flew into a rage. She already felt indignant for having to come over personally to invite this fellow, and yet, the other party still acted like that. It was as if she meant nothing to him at all. At the first meeting, others would at least greet her politely with, paying respect to Princess Mou, or, my pleasure to meet you, trying their best to be as gentlemanly as they could be. Yet, the other party immediately came with a, what are you doing here? As soon as he saw her. Are we close buddies? If not for my father nagging me, do you think that I'd be here? I've met rude people before, but to think that you would top the list. Breathing heavily in anger, Mou gritted her teeth. Upon recalling her father's instructions, she felt even more dismayed. Even so, knowing the identity of the man before her, she could only suppress her rage. Her father's intentions for demanding for her presence couldn't be any clearer. He wanted the both of them to have some time with one another, and it would be best if there was any spark between them. After all, this would be greatly beneficial to her. The fight for the throne was callous. Even though Mo Hongyi's surname was Mo, he was neither from the main family nor was he a close kin. As a talented individual who was about to become a 2-star master teacher, if he truly set his eyes upon the throne, neither the crown prince nor the other princes would be a match for him. Mou, as a fellow master teacher, was the only one who could stand against him. Thus, Emperor Mo Tianxue intended to groom Mou for her to become the empress so as to prevent the royal insignia from falling into the hands of an outsider, and to do so, her husband would play an important role in consolidating her power. In the entire capital, the two most talented individuals other than Mo Hongyi was Master Teacher Zhang Xian and Lu Laoshi. Master Teacher Zhang Xian possessed high standing and powerful cultivation. On top of that, he also had the backing of a powerful teacher. Even if some spark were to be ignited between Mou and him, it would be difficult for Mou to keep him in check. But Lu Laoshi was different. Mo Tianxue had sent some men to look into his affairs and confirmed that the other party was a true blue Tianwu Kingdom civilian. Due to the lack of talent, he was unable to take the master-teacher examination at the same time. His cultivation was also only at Tongxian realm primary stage, which was considerably weak compared to the geniuses in the city. Normally, this kind of person wouldn't be able to match up to Mou. But no one could have imagined that he would possess divine medical skill, which paved his way into becoming the head of the physician guild all of the sudden. Even though physician wasn't a combat occupation, very few were willing to step on their toes. After all, no one could ensure that they wouldn't fall ill. If some kind of relationship were to really sprout between him and Mou's seat on the throne would be further stabilized. At the very least, Mo Hongyi would have to think twice before vying for the top seat. Thus, Mou held back her displeasure and came here personally to invite Lu Laoshi over. She thought that the other party would be flattered and overwhelmed by her presence, but in the end, the other party simply disregarded her. She was a princess and a master teacher. What was with this attitude toward her? Gritting her teeth tightly, she harumphed. After bringing up her father, she thought that no matter how arrogant Lu Cheng was, he would at least defer to her father's standing. Yet, the other party simply frowned. Your father? Why is he looking for me? I still have something to attend to, so I don't have much time. Zhang Xian wasn't too bothered with the emperor of the kingdom. Unable to hold back their curiosity, the duo hurriedly followed behind them. Parked at the entrance of the academy was a massive carriage. Before Zhang Xian and the others could reach the carriage, the yellow drape veiling the interiors of the carriage parted, and a middle-aged man carrying a majestic disposition walked down. His eyes were filled with energy and his aura felt imposing as if a mighty dragon. Even from a distance, Zhang Xian could already feel a strong pressure from him. The middle-aged man was a Zongshi realm pinnacle expert, an existence who was just a step away from reaching Half-Shizuan. You must be guild leader Lu. Mo Tianxue walked up to Zhang Xian with a smile. As he proceeded forward, he examined the other party carefully. A moment later, a commendatory gleam flashed across his eyes. As the emperor of a country, he naturally carried a disposition which exerted immense pressure on others. Even if an expert of the same cultivation realm were to face him, the other party wouldn't be able to avoid feeling intimidated and anxious. As expected of the person who solved 19 questions on the wall of dilemma. Despite his young age, the other party was extremely composed. Just his mental fortitude in itself was something incomparable by most. May I know the reason behind His Majesty's visit? Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. Lu Laoshi has solved 19 questions of the Wall of Dilemma consecutively, thus becoming a legend in the kingdom. I happened to pass by here today, and out of admiration for you, I would like to invite you to the royal palace. Mo Tianxue said. Royal palace? Zhang Xian shook his head. I appreciate your goodwill, but I have some affairs to attend to at the Apothecary Guild today. Thus, I will have to turn down your offer. Zhang Xian still had to look for pills containing spiritual energy at the Apothecary Guild before heading to the residence to impart Zhaoye the Heaven's Path sword art. He truly didn't have the time to be visiting the royal palace at the moment. He rejected the emperor's invitation. Zhao Wuxing and Lu Changyan had been following behind Zhang Xian and Mou stealthily, and as soon as they caught up, they immediately heard those words and shuddered in fear. Lu Laoshi sure was daring. It was bad enough to be disrespectful to Princess Mou, but to reject the emperor's invitation to his face. Since guild leader Lu has something up, I won't impose on you then. Here is a token of my sincerity, please accept it. Despite the other party rejecting his goodwill, Mo Tianxue didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he simply gestured with a smile, and a eunuch quickly walked forward to present a jade box over. As the head of the physician guild, the other party was worthy to be considered as a fellow peer. Mo Tianxue waved his hand, and the eunuch opened the jade box. Concentrated spiritual energy immediately gushed out from within, stimulating one's blood. A transparent rock of the size of a walnut was placed neatly within the jade box. Reflecting the rays of the sun, it was as brilliant as a diamond. Spirit stone. It's a spirit stone. Upon seeing the object, Zhao Wuxing and Lu Changyin's body trembled. At the same time, a flame ignited in their eyes. Spirit stone was an ore mined from regions where spiritual energy was dense, and it was a commodity rarely seen even in conferred kingdoms. Every single one of them was incomparably valuable and rare, and it was an unparalleled treasure in boosting a cultivator's cultivation. According to the rumors, only higher-tiered kingdoms possessed the right to trade spirit stones, but even so, the demand still severely outstripped the supply. Even a 2-star master teacher would find it hard to obtain one. To think that the emperor would give such a valuable object to this Lu Laoshe. This gift was simply too big. If they were in his place, they would have immediately become so agitated that they might even forget their own names. They hurriedly turned to look at Lu Laoshe, and he still had the same impassive expression on, as though he was unmoved by the other party's gift. No wonder, just Lu Laoshe's ability to maintain his composure in such a situation itself makes him already worthy of respect. Upon seeing this sight, the duo suddenly found themselves in awe of Lu Laoshe. That was a spirit stone. There was no cultivator whose breathing wouldn't hasten upon seeing it. Just by how Lu Laoshe could remain calm before it already made him worthy of the emperor's respect. Just as they were lamenting the innate difference among fellow humans, they heard the young teacher ask with a doubtful tone, "What's this?" Putong. The duo's vision darkened, and they suddenly found themselves on the verge of tears. To think that they felt deep respect for Lu Laoshe when the truth was that he didn't even recognize what it was. They had wasted their respect on him. Cough cough. The proud Mo Tianxue, who was looking at Zhang Xian expectantly in hopes of seeing the shock on the other party's face, choked on his saliva. He was rendered completely speechless by the other party. Even if you haven't seen a spirit stone before, you should have at least heard of it. Despite being so skilled in the way of medicine, how could you have never heard of spirit stones before? Zhang Xian had read many books in the master-teacher pavilion, but he had yet to assimilate the content of these books for his own. As such, he was still lacking in the common knowledge in the world. The Library of Heaven's Path was similar to the search engines in his previous life. While one could easily search for answers on it, one had to know what to search for first. Otherwise, it would be useless. That was to say, even though he could easily access the books in the Library of Heaven's Path, he didn't have perfect grasp over the knowledge contained within them yet. The current situation was as such. A brilliant and extraordinary-looking stone was before him, but there were countless other stones in the world as well. How was he supposed to find this single stone among innumerable others among countless books? This is a spirit stone. It contains concentrated spiritual energy within it, allowing to cultivate efficiently, Mo Tianxue explained. Spirit stone. Upon hearing the name, Zhang Xian immediately submerged his consciousness into the Library of Heaven's Path, and a book instantaneously appeared before him. He quickly browsed through it. A detailed description on the subject was written within the book. Spirit stones are ores formed from a dense congregation of spiritual energy, and they contain a concentrated volume of spiritual energy within it. The spiritual energy within it could be absorbed by a cultivator to increase the efficiency of his cultivation, thus solving the problem of limited spiritual energy in his environment. This, blinking his eyes in astonishment, Zhang Xian's face gradually reddened in agitation. Wasn't this what he was looking for? With this, he wouldn't have to head to the apothecary guild anymore. He could just absorb the spiritual energy within the stone to reach Zongshi realm pinnacle. Thank you. Knowing how valuable this object was, Zhang Xian hurriedly grabbed the spirit stone and kept it in his storage ring without even waiting for the other party to finish his explanation. It was just a moment that he was nonchalant to the spirit stone, but in the next instant, he swiftly snatched it away, as though afraid that someone would take it away from him. Mo Tianxue and Mou immediately flew into a frenzy. The heck, your attitude is even more fickle than the weather. Just as they were thinking that the other party was suffering from dissociative personality disorder, they saw the young man placing his hands behind his back and looking into the distance with a deep look, as though an expert who had seen through the vicissitudes of life. I won't take your item for free. How about this, I can conduct a free treatment for you. Mo Tianxue and Mou. Zhao Wuxing and Lu Changyan. Chapter 342, Imparting Sword Art. The Spirit Stone was extremely important to Zhang Xian at this moment. Since the other party was offering it to him, he had no reason to refuse it. However, Zhang Xian wouldn't accept the other party's gift for free either. Thus, he offered him to treat them once for free in return. Speaking of treatment, I really do require guild leader Lu's help. Recovering from his astonishment from the other party's actions, Mo Tianxue clasped his fist and said. The main reason why he had chosen to befriend Lu Laoshi was because he wanted to borrow the latter's medical skill. Since the other party had brought up the topic, he decided to grasp the opportunity. Execute a battle technique then. Zhang Xian nodded. Execute a battle technique? Mo Tianxue was rendered speechless once more. Shouldn't you ask about the illness instead? What do you mean by execute a punching technique? Laughing awkwardly, Mo Tianxue said, it's not for me, but how about this, if guild leader Lu is free now, I would like to invite you to the royal palace. I have some matters to attend to at the moment. I'll head there after I'm done. After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xian said. Isn't guild leader Lu heading to the apothecary guild? Xiao Yu, you should accompany him there. As a 2-star apothecary, you should be well versed with the matters there. Seeing the other party agree to his request, Mo Tianxue stroked his beard with a smile. Besides, the both of you are incredible geniuses. It'll be good for you to get acquainted and learn from one another. Mo Tianxue thought that it was a good opportunity to give the duo some time together. If sparks were to fly from their interaction, that would be for the best. The Emperor is asking Princess Mou to accompany him. Clearly, he is trying to pair the princess with Lu Laoshi. Upon seeing this sight, tears streamed down Zhao Wuxing and Lu Changyan's faces. Regardless of whether it was her standing, beauty, or talent, Princess Mou seemed to be favored by the heavens. No man could possibly reject her accompaniment. The Emperor's intentions couldn't be clearer. If not for fear of being too abrupt, he might have even betrothed her to him at this very instant. As secret admirers of Princess Mou, their hearts shattered. Just when they thought that Lu Laoshi would agree delightfully to the matter, the latter frowned and shook his head. There's no need for that, no need? Mo Tianxue was caught by surprise by the other party's response. Isn't Lu Laoshi heading to the apothecary guild? Even though my daughter isn't the best apothecary there, she is still a 2-star apothecary. With her connections there, you should be spared some hassle in obtaining what you need. Even the most skilled apothecary in Tianwu Kingdom Apothecary Guild, the guild leader, was only at 3-star. Thus, 2-star apothecaries possessed immense say within the guild. Oh, I'm not heading to the apothecary guild anymore. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be bidding you all farewell here. After I'm done with my business, I will definitely pay the royal palace a visit. Zhang Xian clasped his fist and left. The reason why he wanted to visit the apothecary guild was to look for a pill concentrated in spiritual energy for his cultivation. Having obtained a spirit stone, there was no need for him to do so anymore. His greatest priority at this moment was to return to the residence to impart sword art to Xiaoya. After all, she was going to duel with someone 2 days later. You aren't going there anymore? Mo Tianxue blinked his eyes blankly. On the other hand, Mou gritted her teeth. Her father's intentions couldn't be made any clearer. and yet, this fellow actually rejected the offer. On top of that, it was just a moment ago that he insisted on heading to the Apothecary Guild. But upon hearing that she was tagging along, he immediately changed his mind. Am I that ugly? Do you have to be that frightened of me? Farewell. Oblivious to the misunderstanding he had caused, Zhang Xian turned around and left. Master teachers did possess sufficient prestige to disregard royalty. Even though the other party was the emperor of a Tier 1 kingdom, he still had to think twice before doing anything to even an ordinary 2-star master teacher. Putting aside the fact that master teachers were backed by the Master Teacher Pavilion, just the ability of a 2-star master teacher to rally experts was sufficient to wreak havoc in the kingdom. All those who had benefited from their lessons in the past could be considered as their student. With the influence they wielded, destroying the royal family was nothing more than a walk in the park. Father, this fellow is getting out of hand. After the other party disappeared in the distance, Mou bellowed furiously. It is perfectly normal for talented people like him to be proud and unruly. The Zongshi that you spoke of seems to be even more unruly than him, isn't that so? Mo Tianxue replied. With superior talents, it was inevitable that geniuses would tend to be proud and unruly. Besides, they had the qualifications to act in such a manner as well. Zhang possesses true capability. He isn't someone that fellow can compare with. Mou harumphed. Having accompanied Zhang from the Beast Hall to the Red Lotus City, she had a first-hand view of the other party's capability. While she couldn't say that his talents were unparalleled, she didn't think that he was too far from it. In a sense, Mou viewed him as her idol. But this Lu Cheng, he was just an insignificant figure who hadn't even seen the wider world outside. He only happened to possess outstanding medical skills. How could he compare up to her idol? This isn't necessarily so. Not only is that guild leader Lu skilled in way of medicine, his aptitude for teaching is also top-notch. Mo Tianxue chuckled. With a flick of his wrist, he produced a confidential document and passed it over. Take a look at this. Mou took it with a doubtful expression, and with a single glance, her eyes immediately widened. With a single day of guidance, he made all of his students achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation. On top of that, he settled Mu Xueqing's pill poison. Mu Xueqing's father, Apothecary Mu, was one of Mou's examiner during her apothecary examination, and she had met him several times. Through their interactions, she learned that Apothecary Mu was looking for a cure for his daughter's pill poison. Given how Lu Laoshi was able to become the head of the physician guild, his medical skill had to be outstanding. As such, while it was amazing for him to have resolved Mu Xueqing's pill poison, it wasn't beyond expectations. However, for the other party's entire class to achieve a breakthrough in just a single day of guidance, this wasn't something that just anyone was capable of. Even her, a 1-star master teacher, was incapable of such a feat. Indeed. If he wasn't that formidable, I wouldn't have tried to pair him with you. Mo Tianxue chuckled. You should continue on reading. There's something even more interesting beyond that. Princess Mou continued browsing downward and her hands suddenly trembled. Zhang Shi's student, Zhao Ye, fought with Mu Xueqing in a duel, and the result is a draw? And they are fighting once more 2 days later. If Mu Xueqing wins in this duel, it would mean that Lu Laoshi's teaching capability has surpassed that of Zhang Shi. Even if he isn't a master teacher, he would definitely contribute greatly to the country. Try thinking about it. If you were to conduct lessons in the military, what kind of effects would there be? Mo Tianxue said. That Mou fell silent. In just a single day of guidance, the other party's entire class managed to achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation. The benefits of the other party lecturing in the military were unimaginable. He might just single-handedly induce the military might of the country to rise exponentially. Lu Laoshi possesses incredible medical skills and amazing teaching capability. Even though he is unable to match up to Zhang Shi in pill forging and beast taming, the extent of his talent isn't inferior to the other party. It would definitely be beneficial to you to get close to such a person. But of course, you should also try to become closer with Zongshi as well. If he were to speak up for you, regardless of how incredible Mo Hongyi is, he wouldn't be able to shake your position anymore. Mo Tianxue instructed gravely. Yes. Mo Yu nodded. Suddenly, she thought of something and hesitated for a moment before asking, since we are intending to get on close terms with the two, should we stop the duel between Mu Xueqing and Xiaoya? Why should we stop it? Not only should we not stop it, we should even propagate it. We should make everyone aware of this matter and create a huge uproar. This way, we will be able to win his goodwill. Mo Tianxue declared confidently. The other party's intentions are clear. Since he didn't attempt to stop the duel between Mu Xueqing and Xiaoya, then clearly, he wishes to make use of this matter to strike his name out. Since that's the case, we should give him a helping hand. Hearing Mo Tianxue's words, Mo Yu came to a realization. To be honest, she was also curious whether Zhongshi's student, Xiaoya, or guild leader Lu's student, Mu Xueqing, would win. But regardless of who wins, the fact that the two of them came to a draw in their first fight showed that guild leader Lu's teaching capability was in no way inferior to Zhongshi. I should watch their duel 2 days later, Mo Yu made up her mind. After leaving the academy, Zhang Xian double-checked that no one was following him before diving into an alley and transforming into Yangshi. Then, he walked into the residence. Old master, a few guards came by yesterday night to seek refuge with the young master. However, young master is away now, so what should we do with them? Upon seeing Yangshi, Sun Chong stepped forward and greeted him before asking. Seek refuge with the young master? Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. That's right. They said that they were once guards of the Ji clan and they have come here due to a promise with the young master, Sun Chong added. Oh. Zhang Xian nodded as he recalled the matter. 2 days ago, when he just arrived in the capital, he offended a painter, Gmo Gongzi, and the latter sent his men after him. In the end, the other party's men ended up being thrashed by him instead. He then fed them poison and commanded them to teach Gmo Gongzi a lesson. Given that Zhang Xian was away due to his 2-star master-teacher examination, these people had no choice but to escape here to prevent themselves from being killed by the men of the Ji clan. I have heard this matter from Xian Lad, and it seems like he intends to have them serve as guards. As for the trauma they are suffering for, I will resolve it for them. Zhang Xian shook his hands casually. While the cultivation of these people was nothing compared to Zhang Xian, they were still Tongxian realm experts. The residents would be much safer under their protection. Even though it was unlikely that anyone would cause any matter here in deference to Zhongshi's name, it would still be best to prepare for the unexpected. Yes. Even though he wasn't too sure what the old master was speaking of, Sun Chong took note of it. Call Xiaoya over. Walking to the hall and sitting down on the center seat, Zhang Xian instructed. Sun Chong nodded and left. Soon, Xiaoya walked into the hall. I have found a sword art compatible with you and I will impart it to you now. Regardless of who you are fighting with 2 days later, I hope that you can emerge victorious. Don't let me and your teacher down. Looking at the girl before him, Zhang Xian spoke impassively. Grand teacher, rest assured. Xiaoya will not disappoint you. Xiaoya clenched her jaws in determination. That's good. This is the secret manual for the sword art. After you've read through it, feel free to look for me to clarify any doubts. Zhang Xian passed Xiaoya the manual of the simplified version of the Heaven's Path sword art. Knowing that the battle technique imparted by the Grand Teacher couldn't be ordinary, she immediately started browsing through the technique seriously. The Heaven's Path sword art had condensed innumerable profound concepts into simple ones that pointed straight toward the essence of swordsmanship. As such, it wasn't too difficult to learn the technique. In 2 hours, Xiaoya managed to grasp the basics of the technique. However, it would still take some time before she manages to become adept in it. Even so, she could already feel the overwhelming strength of the sword art. It was even superior to Zheng Yang's spear art. Teacher, Pavilion Master Jiang requests an audience. Just as Zhang Xian was done imparting Zhaoye the Heaven's Path sword art, Lu Ling walked into the room. Bring him in. Zhang Xian shook his hands casually when he suddenly froze. Slapping his head, an idea popped into his mind. He was too used to operating in his identity as Zhang Xian that he neglected Yang Xian's standing. As a one-star master teacher, Zhang Xian wasn't qualified to enter the two-star library of the Master Teacher Pavilion. However, it should be easy for Yang Shi to enter. In any case, this wasn't a huge matter in itself. If Yang Xian were to raise the idea, Pavilion Master Jiang surely wouldn't stop him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.